Chapter 352. The heavenly crane lantern had also changed its appearance. The immortal crane's entire body was snow white. Only its eyes were blood red. Tang Tian was curious. It can absorb energy. Adding Tang Tian's attack speed that was not slow, the efficiency was naturally astonishing. His movements became more and more smooth, and he gradually understood. Needless to say, Ling Su's pointed sea spears. With one move, it was a rain of spears. Crane's steel sword was also extremely fast. The sword moved with him, but every sword was extremely small, like a crane's beak hunting for food, fast as lightning. That was why Tang Tian's attacks looked so unique. If his steps were to stagger, Tang Tian would look like a drunk man. His route of advance was completely without any pattern, sometimes left, sometimes right, sometimes strolling, sometimes rolling and crawling. It was completely unfathomable. To the two of them, the hardest thing to improve was true power. Even though Tang Tian currently had the training clothes made by Sai Lei according to the ancient energy room, but the speed of training true power was still not enough to satisfy the two of them. One must know, the consumption of star rocks by the training clothes was extremely terrifying. If not for Tang Tian being a small tyrant, he would not even be able to afford the training clothes. Crane explained, "It is called the Heavenly Crane Lantern, a silver star treasure of the Heavenly Crane constellation. My father used it when he was young, so the sect leader left it for me. Its use is simple. It is able to absorb energy, and it is said that if there is enough energy, it can condense into a crane crystal pill. But I have never seen it before. It is said that the Heavenly Crane constellation in the past could condense a crane crystal pill in 5 years. But the current Heavenly Crane constellation has been in decline for too long, and the energy is too thin." Yes, Crane could not help but reveal a smile. But its greatest benefit is that it can help you train true power. He did not stop, not even for a moment. His attacks were as smooth as flowing water in one breath. His movements were very simple, without the slightest bit of flashy or dazzling, and there were also many unconventional movements. It was as though he had long understood the distribution of every light regiment. Every movement was continuous, and unknowingly shortened the time. Crane's smile froze on his face. He forced a smile. "Aha, that's right, that's right." Ling Su and Tang Tian also took one each. The poor squirrel had been shaken by Yaya, like a small boat in a storm. It had a blank look on its face, unable to understand the situation. Then what's a person who loses to an idiot? Tang Tian grinned. "It's called being worse than an idiot." "How about the exercise suit?" Tang Tian quickly asked. After an unknown period of time, the front suddenly became clear, and Tang Tian immediately broke away from the wonderful state he had just been in. He looked back blankly. Behind him, there was a straight tunnel. Compared to the other two, Tang Tian was not inferior. His moves were extremely fast, and his changes were also extremely fast, but in terms of attacking compared to Ling Su and Crane, he did not have much of an advantage. Crane's sword techniques had already reached a higher level, and was gradually becoming stronger. Among the few of them, he was not eye-catching because he was quiet and did not like to fight, and under the cover of Tang Tian and Ling Su who loved to fight, he was slightly dim. But there were only 3 people who left wounds on his body. One was Tang Tian, one was Bing, and the last was Crane. A place with dense energy was a truly scarce resource. He had already dug through the entire tunnel, and not a single light regiment could be seen in the entire tunnel, as it was all misty blue light. Crane took out a silver immortal crane lantern. The lantern was shaped like an immortal crane and was extremely lifelike. Ling Su was eager to win. With his heart set on winning, he used all his strength and did not care about anything else. Energy was the source of true power, and true power was the foundation and core of martial techniques. Ling Su was enraged. He jumped up and pointed his spear straight at Tang Tian. "Come, if you are a man, then let's fight to our heart's content. It is said that it can be consumed directly." Crane was not sure. "I have never used it before, so it is hard to say. I saw that the energy here is so dense, and if I do not use it, it would be a pity. Luckily, it is the season's field's waterway. If not, this heavenly crane lantern would forever be covered in dust. But he still rushed to the front. The feeling of excitement and the feeling of calmness were truly two different things. The feeling of excitement was more about the control of the body, while the feeling of calmness was more about the insight of the environment. The three of them looked at each other and threw the crane crystal pellet into their mouths at the same time. Why were the northern sky constellations stronger than the southern sky constellations? Why were the polar constellations stronger than the northern sky constellations? Why were the strong martial artists willing to go to the higher level constellations? Why were the axes of heavens rode the 12 ecliptic palaces? Crane cut in at the right time. Oh, you guys can fight a few more rounds. There's still time. The heavenly crane lantern still needs a period of time. Suddenly, a clear crane cry sounded out in the hearts of the three of them. Ling Su, who had long been waiting for a counterattack, snorted with a face full of ridicule. Idiot, such a simple thing. Who wouldn't be able to see it? Tang Tian was still reminiscing about the feeling just now. Pa! The light beside him suddenly exploded, and Ling Su came out from the blue light. Tang Tian reacted. He put his hands on his waist and laughed out loud. Ha ha ha! Ling Su, I won. One for each of us. Crane did not speak any nonsense and extended his hand out to take one. Hearing Crane's words, Tang Tian felt that it would be stupid to fight. All right. Ling Su would not be able to see that people with bad brains truly make people helpless. This godlike young lad should just give in to him. Crane was also done and laughed. Seems like I am the last. Can the crane crystal pellet be eaten? Tang Tian immediately started drooling. Time slowly passed. When Tang Tian opened his eyes, Crane and Ling Su were anxiously looking at the heavenly crane lantern. Crane was surprised. The three of them were extremely fast in their attacks. Suddenly, a blue light surged towards the red-crowned crane lantern and flew into the crane's mouth. The blue light was continuously sucked into the red-crowned crane lantern's mouth, but compared to the blue light in the entire passage, it was just a little. Tang Tian was immersed in the miraculous state. But Tang Tian did not have the time difference. The three of them were completely attracted to the crane crystal pellet in front of them. The crane crystal pellet released an energy undulation that caused people's hearts to palpitate. It was obviously not strong, but it seemed to have a throbbing feeling in their hearts. Normally, there would be a time difference between capturing and attacking, and the experts would usually compress the time difference to the extreme, and those experts who were known for their reactions would make it hard for people to notice the time difference. When Ling Su stepped out from the blue light, he saw Tang Tian, and his face immediately became extremely ugly. Hearing Tang Tian's proud boasting, his face became as black as the bottom of a pot. In the end, the battle did not happen. The three of them trembled. In Heaven's Road, the treasures that could help in training true power were all in the hands of the big powerhouses. All right, it was still the beast-like intuition that suited this crazy young man. Crane's heart was even more surprised. He was naturally calm and always had some suspicions towards intuition. But for intuition to be so strong, he felt that it was scary. He had integrated his enlightenment towards the wind into the heavenly crane sword principle. The speed of his sword was rarely matched by martial artists of the same level. If not for the fact that Ling Su trained in the pointed sea spear, which purely relied on speed, he would not be Crane's opponent. Tang Tian and Ling Su's eyes were wide open. The two of them did not blink. Tang Tian did not know that Crane was secretly observing him. He was immersed in his excited state. The astonishing intuition caused his body to instinctively react. It was a strange feeling. He felt that his body was unprecedentedly powerful, unprecedentedly soft, unprecedentedly obedient. He could almost do any high-difficulty movement as he wished. Star Treasure. The red-crowned crane opened its mouth and spat out 3 soybean-sized, sparkling, and translucent pearls. The luster on the red-crowned crane's body quickly disappeared, and with a speed visible to the naked eye, it once again became a dim silver eagle, just like when it was first taken out. The most fundamental reason was energy, but it was truly a strong intuition. If one had the heart, then it would be like playing chess. Playing chess required intelligence, and with Tang Tian's intelligence, Tang Tian swaggered for a while, then remembered what Crane said, and immediately asked, "Little Crane, didn't you say there was a surprise?" With the attraction of the crane crystal pellet, Ling Su and Tang Tian were finally at peace, the two of them eagerly looking at the heavenly crane lantern. On the back of the bronze mountain goat, Yaya stood at the side, with his hands on his waist, his chest puffed out, his face full of pride. He turned his head and saw the bronze squirrel's sluggish face. Yaya jumped to the squirrel's side, grabbed the squirrel's tail, and shook it with all his might, helping Tang Tian to cheer him on. The energy in the northern sky constellations was much denser than the southern sky constellations. In the denser energy constellations, the speed of training was faster, and martial artists could become stronger. As long as a strong martial artist had some ambition, they would be willing to go to a higher level constellation, to be able to improve even faster. Although Ling Su's face was black, but the corner of his eyes could not help but glance over, he was extremely curious about Crane's surprise. Crane was not one to brag. "Yes," Crane laughed, "but don't hold too much hope. This thing has been with me for so many years, but I've never seen it produce a crane crystal pellet before. It was written in the sex records, and my mother said that it did condense in the past, so I brought it with me." Tang Tian's sympathetic gaze almost caused Ling Su to go berserk again. Crane thought for a while and understood. It was intuition. Tang Tian immediately turned his head and jumped in fright. The blue light in the passage had become extremely thin. If it was previously a dense blue mist, now it was as thin as a veil, and he could even see the other end of the passage. But Crane could see it clearly. Tang Tian's attack method immediately attracted him. It was Crane's first time witnessing such a weird battle. Tang Tian would sometimes miss a few balls of light, but Tang Tian would definitely use a weird movement and eliminate those that slipped through the net. He could not tell whether Tang Tian was doing it intentionally or not. Tang Tian went to Crane's side and asked curiously, "Crane, what is this? I've never seen you take it out before." After watching for a while, the three of them felt bored and simply sat down to meditate. Training true power. Ling Su and Tang Tian exclaimed at the same time. Little Crane, Crane's eyes suddenly lit up, the dark red light aura, as though it had suddenly come alive. What an unreasonable and valiant kind of strength. Chapter 353. Please don't. This godlike young lad. I finally have a chance to be saved by others. If you die like that, how can you be worthy of this chance bestowed by the heavens? Tang Tian was ecstatic. He was truly a genius. His tone suddenly changed and said, "Tang Tian, are you afraid of death?" It was truly too complicated. According to the sword technique, if Tang Tian wanted to summon the Void Dark Flames, he would first need to summon the Saint Sword Ocean Prison. And the method to summon the Saint Sword Ocean Prison was extremely complicated. Without training for a long period of time, it was impossible to succeed. Sweeping a glance at the methods, Tang Tian's scalp went numb. The laughter was filled with astonishing power, as though it wanted to pierce through the void. Tang Tian suddenly reacted, and his face changed. He clenched his teeth and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Ocean Prison! Ocean Prison! Quickly come out! Ocean Prison!" Tang Tian's meridians were instantly stuffed to the brim. He felt as though his meridians were about to burst, and his body was about to explode. The amount of energy contained in the crane crystal pellet was too large. It frantically flowed along his meridians, rushing towards his dantian. The three different powers clashed, causing him to lose control of his chi, blood, and spirit for a short period of time. When he regained his senses, the surging energy had already completely suppressed the two powers. Tang Tian felt a surge of anger rushing to his head. He started to think of a way to counterattack. Even if he was being suppressed by the energy, it made him feel extremely unhappy. At that moment, the surging energy was his enemy. In this void, there's no time, no light, no sound. Living is worse than dying. The other party said indifferently. Upon understanding, Tang Tian's eyes immediately lit up. He consciously controlled the spiraling energy and circled around the void dark flames quickly. The speed of the spiraling energy increased, and the efficiency of absorbing the mist of energy increased. Tang Tian's head felt as though it was being punched. His mind went blank, as though the world had stopped. But Tang Tian did not have the time to scold anyone. It had become his only hope. No matter how preposterous, no matter how complicated, he could only bite the bullet. This godlike young lad can do anything. Tang Tian muttered in his heart as he hypnotized himself. I'm out. Like a surging flood, it engulfed every corner of Tang Tian's meridians. Not good. The old man cannot think it through and wants to commit suicide. If not, why would he ask if he was afraid of death? Following the spiraling energies increase in quantity and quality, the efficiency of absorbing the mist of energy also increased greatly. He really wanted to curse out loud. Who had created this martial technique? Are they trying to make things difficult for him? Why are you afraid of death? Tang Tian muttered to himself. I think that Grandpa Ocean Prison has something that he cannot let go of. Tang, there, that Tang, master. There. Master, there. Only alive. You master of there. To dark, I master you, I Tian, I master, I. When the energy flowed into his dantian, the two energies instinctively sensed danger, and at the same time, the light aura burst forth. How about you save me first, and then find a place for yourself? His consciousness flew into the void dark flames. Tang Tian felt his surroundings darken, and he entered an endless void. The pain that was tormenting his mental state had disappeared. In this void, there was not a bit of light, not a bit of sound. What made Tang Tian heave a sigh of relief was the spiraling energy was extremely effective. Although the spiraling energy was slow, it was firm as it flowed through the meridians. The energy of the mist was many times bigger than before. Tang Tian felt that his body was like an inflated balloon. The other party was quiet for a long time. But where can I get the void dark flames? The laughter stopped, and a roar came out. Brat, Ocean Prison is here. Come and get it. Suddenly, the other party chuckled, and gradually, the smile became a laugh. Ah! The destructive power of the void dark flames was extremely strong. The energy that was originally like water rushed forward and was immediately burnt into a mist. The blue light in Tang Tian's dantian was dense. It was extremely beautiful, but Tang Tian's pain was multiplying. The enemy must be killed without mercy. Sigh. Tang Tian inhaled a breath of cold air. The old man's attitude seemed to be very firm. Without saying a word, Tang Tian split the thick spiraling energy into two. Following the same pattern, as time passed, the spiraling energy in his body had already exceeded 10. Like a group of silver fishes swimming in the water for food. The spiraling energy had also undergone a huge change from before. It became even brighter and more agile. The true power threads became even more fine and compact, and the size had also doubled. Tang Tian felt that he was at a loss for words, and did not know how to persuade him. He racked his brains and said, Grandpa Ocean Prison, this place is truly lonely and very boring. But why did Grandpa Ocean Prison live here for so long, and only until today did you not think it through? Grandpa Ocean Prison? The other party was startled, but immediately reacted and laughed out loud. Interesting. It was extremely difficult for the spiraling energy to advance. The energy from the crane crystal pellets explosion was extremely condensed, and the spiraling energy was unable to absorb it. But Tang Tian knew if he did not do anything, he would definitely die. Other than revolving the spiraling energy, he had no other way. How to sense? After an unknown period of time, the spiraling energy suddenly loosened around him. The other party was silent. Tang Tian swallowed his saliva, and with a face of earnest advice, Grandpa Ocean Prison, as the saying goes, a good death is better than a bad life. This is the biggest logic in the world. Every single person who dies will be regretting in some corner. Tang Tian was only praying that the Saint Sword Ocean Prison could understand human words. You are after all a Saint Sword. At least you should be smarter than the Safe and Sound Sword. The Safe and Sound Sword could understand people: Little Brother Ocean Prison, Big Brother Ocean Prison, Uncle Ocean Prison, Grandpa Ocean Prison. After a rough look, Tang Tian could not help but want to curse. Tang Tian heaved a sigh of relief and rubbed his hands. That Ocean Prison. A blurry figure appeared in the void not far from Tang Tian and gradually appeared. Tang Tian could see the outline of the person's body, but his face was a blur, and the usual sense of space was completely subverted here. The opponent seemed to be very close to him, but also very far away. Such a weird feeling was something Tang Tian had never experienced before. I need more void dark flames. No, I cannot let the void dark flames dim down. Tang Tian suddenly realized the crux of the battle was how long the void dark flames could last. Fuck, can it be any more preposterous? If the walls of the Dantian were to break, that would mean that the Dantian would be destroyed. It was the grandpa-level ocean prison. Damn it. And these 17 changes were not the first threshold. The first threshold was that you need to sense the Saint Sword Ocean Prison. As for how to sense it, it did not mention a single word. The sky above Tang Tian's Dantian was blue and black. It was clearly differentiated. The blue was the ice blue heart, while the black was the void dark flames. These two completely different types of energy caused Tang Tian's Dantian to be divided into two different colored regions. Of course, Tang Tian was obviously extremely anxious. He wanted to shout out loud, "Grandpa Ocean Prison, follow me." But it seemed the other party was not easy to fool. He could only patiently explain, "Grandpa Ocean Prison, us humans and your swords. What swords are different? If you're not careful, you will die." At this time, he did not care much. He had to try first. The first step, he needed to sense the Saint's Sword Ocean Prison. Tang Tian's mind surfaced all the unfamiliar sword techniques. Amongst them was the technique to summon the void dark flames. At this time, Tang Tian did not care about the unknown sword techniques. His life was more important, but the void dark flames had been exhausted for a long time and was currently extremely dim. The energy was starting to gain the upper hand, causing Tang Tian to feel that something was wrong. He tried to use the spiraling energy to absorb the liquid form energy, but realized that he was unable to absorb it. Bang! The mist form energy around the void dark flames was immediately swept away, and the terrifying feeling of explosion was finally alleviated. He endured the pain of his meridians exploding and used all his might to revolve the spiraling energy in his body. Why? Tang Tian was startled. If I die, there will be nothing left. My family will be gone, my friends will be gone, and my dreams will be gone. Living is better than dying. Tang Tian thought for a long time. His attention landed on the void dark flames, and without hesitation, he immersed his consciousness into the void dark flames. His thoughts were simple. If there was anything related to the Saint Sword Ocean Prison, it would most probably be the void dark flames. Tang Tian looked around, but there was nothing. In just a few breaths of time, the spiraling energy had obviously become thicker. Tang Tian was facing a great enemy. He became alert and immediately nodded his head. Yes. Grandpa Ocean Prison, how are you? Once the crane crystal pellet entered his throat, Tang Tian's body could not help but tremble, as though a bomb had exploded in his body. The astonishing amount of energy suddenly surged and dissipated in all directions. A black sword without a sword blocking it quietly floated in the air. Tang Tian, who was in a state of confusion, suddenly regained his senses. The spiraling energy had actually rushed to his Dantian and entered the area of influence of the void dark flames. The void dark flames' firepower was much dimmer than before, and the entire Dantian was enveloped by the blue energy mist. What made Tang Tian even more shocked was that his Dantian walls actually had cracks. You are Tang Tian? The other party's voice was very old and deep. Roughly looking, from sensing the Saint Sword Ocean Prison to pulling it out from a void, his true power had gone through 17 changes. Such a complicated martial technique. Tang Tian had never seen or heard of it before. Wherever the spiraling energy passed, his six senses would multiply, and the pain would also multiply, causing Tang Tian's mind to become numb. But his willpower was strong. Although the situation was dangerous and extremely painful, he had never thought of giving up. His mind was filled with only one thought, and that was to let the spiraling energy advance. Tang Tian suddenly saw the spiraling energy revolving around the void dark flames, and immediately sensed something different. He endured the pain, calmed his heart, and after a while he understood. The spiraling energy was truly unable to absorb the concentrated energy from the explosion of the crane crystal pellet, but was able to absorb the energy that was dispersed by the void dark flames. The ice blue heart had already been compressed into a small regiment of blue light, while the void dark flames was like an enraged lion, not giving an inch. Chapter 354. Tang Tian was startled. He did not instigate the spiraling energy. Tang Tian's heart secretly trembled. It was as though what floated in front of him was not a sword, but a nameless fierce beast quietly lying dormant, and could explode at any time, choosing people to devour. The 36 rays of spiraling energy converged together. The power was completely different. They spun at a high speed, bringing along a black flame. Tang Tian had already started to regain control of his body. The situation was finally under control, and he heaved a sigh of relief. Although there was still a bit of energy left, but the damage to Tang Tian's body was very low. Not good. The spiraling energy in his body was like a shark that smelled blood and swam along his meridians with all its might. But the meridians in Tang Tian's body were currently filled with compressed energy. The spiraling energy's resistance was huge, and its speed was extremely slow. And the first spiraling energy shot out from the void dark flames. Like an extremely powerful arrow, it pierced into the remaining energy. Pong! The remaining highly concentrated energy suddenly shattered, turning into a cloud of mist. Before the mist could even spread, it disappeared and was completely absorbed by the spiraling energy. Just as Tang Tian was preparing to test out his new idea, a change occurred. Tang Tian was unsure. Suddenly he felt an intense pain in his body. His body immediately bent over, and the void dark flames in his body became so weak that it was almost extinguished. But in Tang Tian's hand, there was only the sword hilt. The sword blade had completely disappeared. Tang Tian was startled. He was prepared to grab the sword hilt to see what was going on, but he realized the sword hilt did not move at all, as though it was embedded in the air. A shocking scene happened in Tang Tian's body. The void dark flames quickly gained the upper hand. It was the sword hilt. Tang Tian's eyes were wide open. He clenched his teeth, his face was distorted, and he held onto the sword hilt with all his might. What happened next gave him a huge fright. Go get the sword. The black void dark flames slowly and steadily flowed into Tang Tian's meridians from his palm. It was like an extremely hot black asphalt. Everywhere it passed, the pain caused Tang Tian's mind to go blank. Tang Tian's expanded meridians were not able to shrink in time, and were once again occupied by the void dark flames. With astonishing speed, the void dark flames tempered Tang Tian's meridians, causing Tang Tian's meridians to become sparkling and translucent. It looked like it had become thinner, but it was even more tenacious than before. Most importantly, it was much thicker than before. The energy of the crane crystal Dan had already been completely absorbed by the spiral energy, and at this time, the original appearance of Tang Tian's dantian finally appeared. The void dark flames was only left with a small strand, while the ice blue heart was compressed into a blue pearl. The sound of ice water being poured on a piece of red-hot metal could be heard. Saint Sword Ocean Prison's blade was slowly pulled out from the void by Tang Tian. The dense black flames coiled around the blade, burning the air. The transparent, spiraling energy was still formed from even finer true power threads, but every single true power thread was sparkling and translucent, and they were intertwined together in an extremely complicated way. Looking carefully, one would realize that the fine and transparent true power threads were actually flowing slowly. Tang Tian's hands unconsciously held onto the Saint's Sword Ocean prison and released a heart-wrenching scream. Quietly floating in the void, it was as quiet as a virgin. Its entire body was as black as ink. The palm width of the sword blade was 2.5 m long, perfectly straight without a trace of curve. The sword hilt, that was over 30 centimeters long, was enough for a grown man to hold the sword with both hands. The most peculiar thing was it did not have a guard, which made it look extremely ferocious. Tang Tian suddenly thought about the highly condensed energy. He calmed his heart down and carefully observed it, and only after a long while did he realize the true power threads were truly in a liquid state, and were much more condensed and viscous than the highly compressed energy, and on the outside was a layer of transparent membrane, which was Tang Tian's martial spirit. ZZZ. So. Tang Tian had just thought of that when he suddenly realized that he had actually moved to the front of the Saint Sword Ocean prison. Saint Sword Ocean prison's sword hilt. Seeing the black, spiraling energy in his body, it was the result of the spiraling energy absorbing the void dark flames. Tang Tian suddenly thought of something. The spiraling energy could absorb the void dark flames, and the Saint Sword Ocean prison did not seem to have any reaction to the spiraling energy absorbing the void dark flames. The surrounding void retreated like a tide. Tang Tian suddenly realized that he was inside the passage, and Crane and Ling Su, who were at the side, entered his vision. The two of them were meditating and did not seem to be in a good situation. The energy wreaking havoc in Tang Tian's body was like boiling water. Tang Tian's entire body was red like a cooked prawn, so red that it looked like blood would seep out of his skin at any time. Saint Sword Ocean prison was slowly being pulled out from the void by Tang Tian. The pitch-black sword body released an extremely dangerous qi. If Tang Tian were to open his eyes, he would definitely be shocked to realize that the remaining energy in the passage seemed to have been immobilized and had stopped flowing. The number of them had increased from 18 to 24, and it was a spectacular sight. Just that the spiraling energy was no longer silver, but black, and similarly absorbed a large amount of void dark flames. It was truly mystical. Not caring about being surprised, Tang Tian was ecstatic. Without hesitation, he grabbed onto Ocean Prison Sword's hilt. Saint Sword Ocean Prison. The spiraling energy split into two in the air above his Tang Tian. One group pounced towards the remaining void dark flames. The other group pounced towards the ice blue heartbeats. The sword hilt did not move an inch. Tang Tian's eyes opened wide. He bellowed. Using all his strength, he grabbed onto the sword hilt and pulled it out. I did not lose connection with the spiraling energy. Tang Tian thought of a problem and immediately became suspicious. The spiraling energy was like a shoal of fish being pushed. Following the push of the void dark flames, it once again fell back. Persevere. Tang Tian clenched his teeth tightly. Such a ferocious sword, and the void dark flames could actually temper his own martial spirit, and the silver martial spirit was tempered into a transparent state. Damn it! The faster the true power evolved, it meant that he could unleash his moves faster and change his moves faster, and the increase in his fighting strength had a huge increase. He was now filled with anticipation towards the new, spiraling energy, and did not know how powerful it was. The silent black flames engulfed the entire passageway, and in a moment, the thin blue mist disappeared, and the passageway no longer had any energy. It was not the time to reminisce and be emotional. Tang Tian did not care about anything else. He had to get past the hurdle in front of him first. The 2.5 m long sword blade rubbed against the air, and with a terrifying ZZ sound, it was slowly pulled out. The moment the sword tip left the void, the thin energy in the passageway was like withered grass, suddenly combusting. The new spiraling energy appeared in front of Tang Tian. Could it be that he needed to pull out the sword? The spiraling energy entered the void dark flames, and the void dark flames that were as sticky as asphalt immediately had a small vortex. Tang Tian was unsure. Suddenly he felt that his hand was holding on to something and immediately lowered his head. Bang! Just that, after the tempering of the void dark flames, the silver martial spirit became even thinner and more transparent. The high-speed, spiraling energy formed a small vortex around it, which also caused it to absorb the void dark flames at an extremely fast rate. His martial spirit had tempered the void dark flames, and after spending a lot of effort, he only obtained a transparent thread. Tang Tian's eyes were red. All the muscles in his body tensed up. The energy in his body seemed to have discovered the ocean prison sword, and the surging energy surged into the sword hilt. The energy of the crane crystal pellet had already started to dry up. Tang Tian could feel the surging energy in the transparent, spiraling energy and was surprised and happy. Before he could react, the other spiraling energy seemed to have received a summon and rushed towards the void dark flames. Tang Tian had an even more brazen thought. If he used the void dark flames to temper his martial spirit's silver flame, would it make his martial spirit stronger? Tang Tian's body trembled like fried beans. The energy in his body flowed along his arm and rushed towards the sword hilt. And the void dark flames inside the Saint Sword Ocean prison was far from what the void dark flames in Tang Tian's body could compare to. The highly condensed energy had not even touched the sword hilt and was refined into a mist. Bang! Unless it was a dream? The originally devastating energy was already showing signs of being unable to withstand it. The sword hilt trembled slightly, as though a slumbering fierce beast had been awakened. If not for Bell's investigation, Wu Wanghai would have told Tang Tian that it was an unfamiliar name. Even now, Tang Tian did not know much about Wu Wanghai. The only impression he had was that this senior was very powerful and swift and fierce, and that sort of thing. This speed caused Tang Tian to be dumbstruck, and he was immediately overjoyed. The spiraling energy slowly but steadily advanced, and when they rushed to Tang Tian's wrist, the resistance immediately lessened, and they happily swam around the energy mist, frantically absorbing the mist energy. 36 rays of spiraling energy suddenly flew through his meridians like a school of transparent fishes. One after another of the spiraling energy flew out from the void dark flames, like transparent swordfish jumping out of the water. They once again returned to Tang Tian's meridians. The concentration of the energy was too high to the point that he was unable to absorb it. Once he lost control of the situation, his dantian would shatter, and at that time, his body would be incinerated by the energy, and not even a scrap would remain. The spiraling energy in Tang Tian's body had already reached 18 rays. The void dark flames currently held the absolute advantage. Tang Tian felt the sword hilt loosening, gathered his remaining strength, and pulled out fiercely. But the spiraling energy had already grown to 36 rays. Upon thinking about it, Tang Tian was eager to try it out. To other people, such a risky method would definitely be carefully thought through. But to Tang Tian, he did not have much hesitation. But Tang Tian's face changed. The situation was dire. He held onto the sword hilt tightly and used all his strength to pull out. In terms of size, the newly formed spiraling energy was thinner than the previous one by half, but it was surprisingly agile. Its speed was as fast as lightning. With just a thought from Tang Tian, it would instantly complete half a cycle. The originally jet-black spiraling energy slowly became transparent, as though it was slowly throwing out the void dark flames in his body. This discovery made Tang Tian overjoyed, but the following observation made him even more shocked. Not only did the spiraling energy not repel the void dark flames, but instead continued to absorb them. It was Tang Tian's first time seriously observing the Saint Sword Ocean prison. Tang Tian tried to control one of the spiraling energy to fly towards the void dark flames. They were like a school of silver fishes, shining and extremely agile. Tang Tian's arm immediately inflated like a balloon, The needle-like pain caused him to almost let go of the sword hilt, but he knew that he definitely could not let go. If he did, he would be finished. The void dark flames seemed to be endless. There was no end, but there were 35 more vortices. Chapter 355. Maybe I can think of some ideas on the spiraling energy. The void dark flames went through a complete cycle and finally reached the Danteon. The star spirit beasts were immediately enraged. Their intelligence had been awakened, and Tang Tion's blatant disdain immediately stirred up the hornet's nest. Countless figures suddenly pounced towards Tang Tion. His legs suddenly exerted strength, and his figure suddenly disappeared. What to do? What to do? What he had done had produced an astonishing value, and the rewards were bountiful. It could be considered as a foolish person having foolish fortune. It required a huge amount of courage and endurance. After being filled up, the 6th level Danteon pool also started to expand. After summoning the Saint Sword Ocean Prison, what should I do? Tang Tion looked around, trying to find the crux to break through the unfamiliar sword technique. He had just sent away a vicious wolf, and now a ferocious tiger had appeared. Tang Tion wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Tang Tion's expression immediately became distorted. The surging pillar of fire pierced into the Danteon. What method was there to form the 8th level of Danteon? That's right, Tang Tion thought that the biggest part was the potential of the Danteon pool. Every time the Danteon pool expanded to a critical point, the spiraling energy would sense danger and automatically enter the lower level Danteon pool. The Danteon became bigger and bigger, and the walls of the Danteon became thinner and thinner. When Tang Tion regained his senses, his face changed. In the past, regardless of which mental cultivation technique, there would always be an obvious characteristic. Every time one's realm rose by a level, the space in the Danteon pool would increase by more than 10 times. That was why every level of martial artist had such a huge gap. But the result in front of him made Tang Tion realize the common sense that he took for granted was most likely wrong. His body suddenly moved like a sharp arrow. He shot deep into the depths. Papa, this asshole. But unexpectedly, Tang Tion's body did not explode. The 36 spiraling energies were not only connected to his mind, but they were also extremely condensed, far surpassing his current true power. He did not even look at the corpses on the ground and disappeared into the tunnel. The cold voice was like a blade cutting through the air, cold and threatening. Tang Tion's speed did not decrease in the slightest. The straight and narrow ocean prison in his hand suddenly pointed forward, like a knight holding his lance. Life rises and falls too quickly. Tang Tion's heart was filled with sorrow. His own heaven's road was like a black rope strung with many black beads. Tang Tion suddenly discovered that the difference in size between the adjacent Danteon pools had shrunk a lot. The amount of void dark flames that the low-level Danteon pools could hold was much more than what Tang Tion had imagined. They had also grown to a much larger extent than the 7th level Danteon pools. Tang Tion was trying his best to find a way, but neglected the progress of the void dark flames. The void dark flames had already reached Tang Tion's lowest level Danteon pool and had pushed it to the critical point. If this went on, his Danteon would be forcefully burst. The 7th level could just liquefy the true power. However, Tang Tion felt the benefits. Tang Tion finally understood what it meant to quench one's thirst. Tang Tion clenched his teeth. He could only continue to guide it. The extremely sharp sword aura spewed out from the two sides of the flat ocean prison sword. At this time, no one corrected him that it was quenching one's thirst. He glanced at Crane and Ling Su, who were trembling from head to toe, but did not have any intention to help. He held onto the long and narrow ocean prison sword and gazed into the depths of the waterway. Tang Tion's figure did not move. His wrist trembled slightly, and the long ocean prison sword drew out a faint sword image. The black figure did not even have time to scream, and its head was separated from its body. This strange phenomenon attracted Tang Tion's attention. He initially thought that after absorbing so much energy, he would definitely be able to level up. Who knew that it would produce 36 rays of spiraling energy, causing Tang Tian to be surprised. Hey, 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 Grandpa Ocean Prison, it's about time, it's about time. Tang Tian's tone was filled with flattery, looking as though he could not wait to bow and scrape. Tang Tian's heart was filled with tears. It was not that he did not want to bow and scrape, but damn it, he did not even have a chance to bow and scrape. Tang Tian's meridians were all being refined by the void dark flames. They quickly became transparent, and the originally shrinking meridians were once again widened. The thick diameter, the thin and transparent walls, was Tang Tian's current meridians. The black figure was actually a star spirit beast and had already reached the 8th level. But Tang Tian's cold heart still throbbed. If he had come out a step later, he would have been played to death by that idiot. Even though he already had the intention to clean up the mess, but he hated danger. What happened next was a spectacular sight. The true power in his dantian was instantly evaporated, and then was devoured by the spiraling energy. The void dark flames seemed to be endless, continuously flowing into his dantian, and in the blink of an eye, his dantian was full. Super 7th level, he once again browsed through the unfamiliar sword techniques in his mind. Now he had mixed feelings towards the things that suddenly appeared in his mind. At the start, he was extremely repulsed and resistant, and after that the Saint Sword Ocean Prison saved his life, but immediately after, it pushed Tang Tian to the edge of the cliff. The sky-shaking roars of the star spirit beasts suddenly stopped, and the sky full of black figures was swept away. Tang Tian's body froze, his mind was blank, and he lost all consciousness. Idiots also have their own benefits. Their endurance is not bad. If Crane and Ling Su were awake, they would definitely be shocked. Tang Tian's display of speed was almost 3 times faster than before, and his light body technique was not wind concealment steps. Unless the low-level dantian pool actually had a lot of potential. The 30 spiraling energy pierced downwards, entering the 6th level dantian pool, and began to guide the void dark flames in. The void dark flames entered Tang Tian's 6th level dantian pool, causing the situation to turn for the better. But the 6th level dantian pool was originally much smaller than the 7th level dantian pool, and very quickly it was filled up. Tang Tian followed the passage and flew forward without stopping. After a moment of silence, Tang Tian's eyes slowly opened. The terrifying pupils were gray, his mouth revealing a cold smile. He gently caressed the ocean prison sword's body and softly muttered, "Thank you." Almost at the same time, he rushed into the group of star spirit beasts, his body leaning forward at an angle of 30 degrees to the ground. Over 100 star spirit beasts did not delay Tang Tian's footsteps at all. Fresh blood splashed across the entire passage, spurting everywhere. The dense blood stench was choking, but Tang Tian's body was not stained with a single drop of blood. As though it could feel Tang Tian's thoughts, the spiraling energy in his dantian swam faster and faster, and gradually a vortex formed in his dantian. The dantian produced a strong suction force, and the speed of the void dark flames that were slowly advancing along his meridians increased greatly. The void dark flames, an ice blue heart above his dantian, shattered at the same time and disappeared. The Saint Sword Ocean Prison in Tang Tian's hand suddenly trembled. Tang Tian's dantian walls started to be burnt by the void dark flames, and the void dark flames continued to pour in, accumulating more and more void dark flames, pushing the dantian walls to slowly expand outwards. Tang Tian's dantian was like a balloon that was slowly being inflated, becoming bigger and bigger. The dantian was like a lake. The 36 rays of spiraling energy swam in one direction in the dantian. The stench of blood immediately pervaded the entire passage, and star spirit beasts appeared from the shadows. The energy concentration here was extremely high, and it was sealed off without anyone to disturb. It was easy for star spirit beasts to breed. The original dantian pool had disappeared, and what replaced it was a sparkling and translucent dantian pool wall that resembled cicada wings. The new Danteon walls, after going through the tempering of the void dark flames, were crystallized true power. Ordinary methods would definitely not be able to crystallize Tang Tion's true power when he was at the 7th level. Tang Tion calmed his heart down and thought carefully. His mental cultivation was already in a mess because the energy in his body was too complicated. But the current energy in his body was swept clean, and only the 36 rays of spiraling energy remained. Tang Tion's mind trembled. The void dark flames and ice blue heart in his Danteon originated from his blood meridians and had an extremely close connection with him. The 36 rays of spiraling energy suddenly pierced into Tang Tion's Danteon. Suddenly, a black figure pounced towards him, as fast as lightning. The 6th level Danteon pool was blown to its maximum, and under that helplessness, Tang Tion continued to guide it downwards. Or maybe it was a special case? The ocean prison sword hummed in his hands. It was extremely joyful. The ocean-like void dark flames in Tang Tion's body trembled. Dong! Tang Tion, who was already at his limit, finally lost consciousness. The biggest problem in his body was the void dark flames. Where did the void dark flames come from? It came from the Saint Sword Ocean prison. Yes, that's right. Tang Tion's eyes lit up. He felt that he had found the source of the problem. Tang Tion did not understand, but there was one thing that was definitely not a problem, and that was the stairway to heaven. Only by forming another layer of Danteon could he step into a whole new realm. Everywhere Tang Tion passed, the star spirit beasts would all be sliced in half by an invisible sharp blade. Not a single star spirit beast could block it, and not a single star spirit beast could escape. Tang Tion was surprised. It was the first time Tang Tion had seen such a situation. His pitiful knowledge did not have any information related to what was happening in front of him. But no matter how stupid he was, he knew that he was at a critical juncture and life and death were in a line. He racked his brains and started to think about it bit by bit. The Danteon that had crystal walls had a huge increase in capacity. The smaller ones had expanded by 5 to 6 times, and the larger ones had expanded by 10 times. Tang Tion did not even bat an eyelid. His speed did not decrease and rush forward. The Saint Sword Ocean prison in his hand did not have any reaction. The tyrannical void, dark flames in Tang Tion's body had become tamed. He noticed the situation in his body and was surprised. Every Danteon pool had been expanded to its maximum. If he was half a step slower, the fate that awaited him would be his body exploding and dying. Tang Tion had already forgotten about the danger. His mind started to wander. Very quickly, he felt that he was not alone, although the void dark flames was weird, but it was truly able to test the potential of every Danteon pool. Even if it was just a whisper, it was bone-chilling. Tang Tion's strength had soared by leaps and bounds. No one with 7th level true power could compare to him. All of Tang Tion's Danteon could hold true power and was much stronger than any ordinary 8th level Danteon. Saint Sword Ocean Prison, 8th level. The void dark flames in his body were quickly drawn out by Saint Sword Ocean Prison, and Tang Tion's body disappeared, leaving behind an enlarged Danteon pool. Tang Tion's expression was normal, without a trace of change, as though what he had done was an extremely simple matter. Chapter 356. Angelina, take good care of General Ba. Zhou Ning laughed sinisterly. His eyes twitched and said hatefully, "Let's go." This woman was truly scheming. To be so dejected just now, she was actually prepared to end her own life. The entire place was dead silent. As for you, Zhou Ning, you are only fit to be a dog. Ba Fu's pupils constricted, and he stopped in his tracks. Angelina's heart was dead. Angelina felt as though she had fallen into an ice house. Her hands and feet were ice cold. This time, he had more time to move around and could do many things. If not for the fact that he had no other choice, he would not have been able to tolerate the low efficiency of himself. Ba Fu was extremely pleased. With a sinister smile, he walked towards Angelina. Everyone then realized, unknowingly, there was another person behind Angelina. George was extremely upset. He knew that Zhou Ning's reputation was terrible. He said gently, "Angelina, stop struggling. I will definitely do everything I can to stop this from happening. But the master's orders, we cannot go against it." Ocean Prison Sword was too conspicuous, and the fact that it did not have a handguard left a deep impression. A rapier without a handguard looked like a sharp and thin metal bar, and should be even more common. What kind of swordsman would dare to use such a dangerous rapier? What dogs love the most is prey. Zhou Ning laughed sinisterly, extremely pleased. "Miss Angelina, to think of playing such tricks in front of me, you are still too inexperienced. I need to plan properly for the next 15 days. Glancing at the stars in the sky, Tang Tian determined his position. George's troops left in a hurry. Angelina's hair stood on end from the cold intent. Tang Tian's rapier quietly hung by his side. His body as straight as a spear. The black flames on his body flowed slowly, his entire being enveloped in complete darkness. Ba Fu acted as though he had heard the funniest joke in the world and laughed maniacally. After a long while, he suddenly said, "Brother Zhou, why don't you let me play for 2 days? Ba Fu, you and the Honorable Martial Alliance are colluding together, and one day you will die a horrible death." Her guards were falling one by one, and the situation was getting worse for her. However, the other party's people had already surrounded her, and she was unable to break out. To the current Tang Tian, the power of the void dark flames was truly too strong, and himself had received a huge impact. Under normal circumstances, he would be unconscious for around 15 days, but to him, it was a rare opportunity. Although that self was a bit of an idiot, the speed of his growth made him have to admit that he was stronger than him. He was calm enough. To him, lying dormant and waiting was no different from attacking. Moreover, he had an accurate judgment of himself. He was more suited for darkness. "General Ba, please enjoy." Zhou Ning smiled evilly. Without a guard, the rapier was like a straight, thin steel bar. This caused the rapier to lose all of its elegance and slenderness, leaving only its fierceness and viciousness. Everyone present had been through hundreds of battles and had a deeper understanding of weapons than the average person. Angelina was in despair, but she knew that any begging or crying would only make the other party more pleased. She straightened her chest, her snow-white fingers combed her bangs and naturally touched her face, and slowly opened her mouth. Unknowingly, her fingertips had a glistening blue needle, touching the snow-white skin of her face. "Your Highness, please do not struggle meaninglessly. This will not change your situation." Outside the circle of battle, a handsome young man said leisurely. His face had a light smile, which was extremely charming. "There's no time, George." Angelina's tears flowed like pearls. "Tomorrow, the people from the Honorable Martial Alliance will arrive. If tomorrow I am still in the palace, they will definitely marry me off to Zhou Ning. The master will not object, and I'm only third in the list of successors." Angelina's heart jumped. Suddenly she realized that her body could not move. Her entire body was not listening to her. The sudden change caused everyone to quiver. All of the guards that rushed in like a tide were the elites under Ba Fu. All of them were extremely powerful, and George's men were not their match. Angelina's face changed. Her heart felt as though it was being clenched tightly by a hand, and she felt that she could not breathe. She did not know that her face was as white as paper. She said sternly, "You dare? Ba Fu, even if I marry Zhou Ning, I will not tolerate you insulting me." The rapier in his hand caused everyone's eyes to constrict. A black flame mask covered his entire face. His grayish-white eyes were cold and emotionless. A cloak with flowing black flames wrapped around his body tightly. She looked at the two of them, filled with disdain. Her heart sunk, killing countless star spirit beasts and mechanisms along the way. Tang Tian seemed to be taking a stroll, his body not stained with any blood. But he finally had the chance to breathe and did not want to waste it. Facing the sunlight, Tang Tian squinted his eyes. His eyebrows frowned slightly. He did not like sunlight. An evil-looking man beside Ba Fu chuckled. Brother Ba has taken a liking to her. It is her good fortune. Women are playthings. It is only interesting to share them with everyone. I still have a few fresh and pretty girls. I will send them to Brother Ba's residence tonight. All of them have some background. They're all from prestigious families. I hope Brother Ba can judge them. Tang Tian quietly stood on the tree branch, like an owl hiding in the night, the dense leaves covering his body. There were so many people fighting, but no one noticed that less than 60 m away from them, there was a person hiding. She stared blankly at the evil-looking man, her body swaying. Tang Tian's figure suddenly disappeared. "TSK George, no wonder you can't rise up." A voice suddenly came out from behind George. Whoosh, a large group of people rushed out, surrounding all of them. Ba Fu looked at Angelina in front of him, his eyes burning with passion. Licking his lips, "Angelina, you are finally in my hands. I have waited for this day for a long time." George was slightly sad. "Angelina, this is Master's order. Surrender. I will not hurt you." Suddenly, an ice-cold and slender metal strip pressed against her snow-white neck and silently pierced forward. The rapier was originally a type of sword that emphasized offense and ignored defense, and the handguard was one of its few effective defensive functions. Since the swordsman didn't even have a handguard, it meant that the swordsman pursued extreme offense and didn't think about defense at all. Angelina was distressed. "George, I do not want to marry the Honorable Martial Alliance's Zoning. If I go back, they will definitely force me to marry Zoning. Zoning is just Qiushan's dog. I will definitely not marry him." But she knew that throwing a tantrum was useless. Her eyes revealed fear and panic, and she looked pitiful. "George, we grew up together. Do you really want to harm me?" That was why he pursued offense and did not care about his life. The other party held onto the black rapier and slowly walked out from behind Angelina. His left palm opened up, and Tang Tian wiped his face. The black void dark flames transformed into a burning black flame mask covering his face. Tang Tian's body released surging black flames, transforming into a cloak, enveloping his entire body. The black flames were like ordinary flames and did not have any void dark flame chi. The ocean prison sword in his right hand transformed into a void dark flame and quickly shrunk, becoming a black rapier. But in Angelina's eyes, it was despicable. A fierce-looking man slowly walked out, his face full of ridicule. Truly a woman's benevolence. "All right, you can scram. Leave this to me." Suddenly, he heard movement from afar, but he did not plan to change anything. When they reached Southern Cross Constellation, it would be the decisive battle. Regardless if it was him or himself, they were far from being strong enough. Either it was a death warrior or a swordsman that had absolute confidence in his own offensive capabilities. Regardless of which, it made Zhou Ning's heart feel a bad premonition. Ba Fu laughed out loud. Losing and regaining was more exciting than anything else. The despair on that beautiful face made him so excited that his bones trembled. He took big steps, extended his hand, and grabbed Angelina's voluptuous chest. Ba Fu's palm felt like it was bitten by a snake, and suddenly felt pain. He groaned, retreated quickly, and roared, "Who?" Angelina sat by the shore, holding her chin, her golden hair scattered over her shoulders, her high nose bridge, her deep blue eyes that were as enchanting as the sea. The long dress that was tied around her waist displayed her voluptuous chest to the fullest. George's face was green. Ba Fu scolded him for being a woman's benevolence, but he did not dare to say anything. Ba Fu held a high position in Andromeda constellation. He was the master's imperial bodyguard. His strength was unfathomable. If he showed any hesitation, Ba Fu would not hesitate to kill him, even if he was the second successor of the Maple Leaf family. Andromeda constellation. Begging only made him feel happy and excited. Angelina held back her tears, her eyes revealing a look of despair. George grew up with her, and she knew his personality like the back of her hand. He was actually innocent and kind. If she begged, maybe he would let her live. George's bodyguards all heaved a sigh of relief. Bafu's fierce name, an Andromeda constellation, could definitely stop a child from crying. But Bafu was a true cold-blooded murderer with a heart of stone. That him would rampage about while he would hide in the darkness. And when the enemy revealed a flaw, he would give a fatal blow. That was what he was most proficient in. This plan was most suitable for both parties, so from the start, he did not fight for control of the body. A thin sword, stuck close to Angelina's neck, extended out. Chapter 357. The surrounding guards seemed to have awoken from their stupor, roaring out, and pounced towards Tang Tian like a tide. But what no one expected was the rapier swordsman and Angelina who were in the encirclement had disappeared. Normally, such a person in any constellation would have an extremely high position. Being ranked third meant that her strength and talent was outstanding, and there were only two people who were more outstanding than her. For the stronger constellations, like the 12 ecliptic palaces, their top 10 successors would be protected. For the smaller constellations, they would usually place the top 5 successors as important targets of protection. Either Andromeda constellation was already in a desperate situation, or these people did not even have the so-called master's orders. Regardless of which it was thought-provoking. A strange true power drilled into Zhou Ning's body from the silver whip, causing Zhou Ning's face to change. He screamed out, loosening his grip, and flew backwards with all his might. Master. The only question left was Andromeda constellation worth him taking action? His state of mind did not have any ripples and was extremely calm. After weighing the pros and cons, he realized Andromeda constellation's specialness. The third-ranked successor will be married to one of Qiushan's subordinates? If not for personally witnessing it, Tang Tian would definitely not believe it. Qiushan was ranked third among the young generation of the Honorable Martial Alliance, and had a bright future, but in the Honorable Martial Alliance, Qiushan was far from being a person with real power. All the martial artists who witnessed the scene were overwhelmed with shock. All the martial artists who originally planned to rush forward retreated in panic. Bafu, who was about to pounce forward, was like a nail nailed to the ground. He raised his face, extremely shocked. Shepherd Whip, one of the treasured weapons of Bodhisattva constellation, was actually turned into fine powder by the opponent's sword. Bafu's body froze, his eyes revealing a look of shock. Ding! Hope rose in her heart, but she was smart enough to not speak. She did not know anything about him, so she spoke less, the less mistakes she made. If she spoke nonsense and angered the opponent, it would be bad. Furthermore, other than obtaining the approval of the big families of the constellation, she also needed the approval of the Saint Treasure. Obtaining the approval of the Saint Treasure meant that the inheritance of the constellation could be continued. Of the two conditions, the former was not the only one, but the latter was the true key. Could it be? He had seen Zhou Ning's sheepherder whip. For the past few days, Bodhi's constellation was only in northern sky grade, but the silver whip was a rarely seen treasure weapon. Moreover, Zhou Ning had spent a lot of effort on it, using the secret skills of the Honorable Martial Alliance to continuously temper it. After a long time, it had already begun to turn a little golden. So in northern sky's 19 continents, there were a few small constellations that followed Andromeda constellation's lead. Just how powerful was the power of this sword? He already had it. She was not a vase after all. She tried hard to control the fear in her heart and not let it spread. Night. Bang. Qiushan's ambition is too big. A hoarse voice came out from the black flame cloak. His voice was filled with an indescribable coldness. In truth, his position was no different from Angelina's. They were both candidates for succession. Zhou Ning felt the danger and arched her body. She narrowed her eyes and stared at Tang Tian. She said coldly, "Who are you?" The tip of the rapier accurately pierced his silver whip, but the sword only pierced through Bafu's palm, causing him to be surprised. What was surprising was that Tang Tian did not take the chance to attack, but stood quietly in front of Angelina. No matter how small a feudal lord was, he was still a feudal lord. He had stayed for so long, was to obtain more information from the opponent. But she had never seen such a sword technique that was filled with dark qi. He quietly stood there with his sword, not saying a word, and did not intentionally hide his figure. It was a chance. Andromeda constellation was just one of the 19 continents in northern sky, and in Heaven's Road, it was just a small feudal lord in the desolate wilderness. Angelina was completely scared silly. The sword that was like a snake or scorpion made her lose all her courage. As the third successor of Andromeda constellation, she was not a flower in a greenhouse. She had battle experience and had personally killed more than one enemy. Even when she was facing the infamous Ba Fu, she did not cower in the slightest. "General Ba, don't fall for it," Zhou Ning said anxiously. "Don't even think of escaping." But such a powerful star treasure was actually destroyed by the opponent's sword. This made Angelina feel weird. In her impression, all the assassins that walked in the dark liked to bend their backs at all times and be on guard at all times. They would work hard to make others ignore their existence. But the person in front of her was not like that. The third position was already a relatively high position, which also meant if the two in front of her fell, or if their future growth did not reach expectations, then the right of inheritance would most likely land on the golden-haired beauty in front of her. Andromeda constellation was one of the strongest constellations in northern skies, 19 continents. As the Saint Treasure of Andromeda constellation only recognized females, so the successive masters were all females. The Saint Treasure of Andromeda constellation was the famous Fairy Hoop. Its might was not the strongest among the Saint Treasures of northern skies, 19 continents. But because of the stable inheritance, the successive masters of the constellations were all relatively stable, accumulating from generation to generation, and instead became one of the strongest powerhouses in northern skies, 19 continents. The third successor, interesting. That was the only reason why Tang Tian made his move. But obviously, everything that was happening in front of him was not normal at all. Ba Fu roared fiercely. He was already unable to restrain his anger. His right palm was dripping with blood. Tang Tian's sword had completely pierced through his palm. What made him even more afraid was a thread of true power had seeped into his palm. No matter how he activated his true power, he was unable to expel the thread of true power from his body. In that moment, Tang Tian could see the indistinct whirlpool in the chaotic information. That was what any constellation master was most unwilling to see. No one dared to move. They could only watch as the opponent carried Angelina, as though he was taking a stroll, disappearing from their vision. Zhou Ning's roar came out from the sky. He reacted the moment Tang Tian disappeared. A silver light shot out from his hand, like a silver snake coming out of its hole into the sky. Andromeda constellation security was the best in northern skies, 19 continents. The lives of the citizens were always stable, and the successive constellation masters were deeply supported by the citizens. Without any hesitation, realizing that, Tang Tian brazenly made his move. Because of his family, Qiushan had been groomed to be independent since young. He was still far from being a true high-ranking elder of the Honorable Martial Alliance. In terms of connections, qualifications, and strength, he could not compare. In times of peace, the so-called rising stars, if they wanted to truly wield power, they had to endure it step by step. Even behind him, Angelina could clearly feel the calmness that was naturally leaking out from his body. Was that absolute confidence? "I wonder who you are." Zhou Ning's expression was calm. Only his eyes were sinister. The world was full of surprises. The 5 successors could only ensure that the legacy could be passed down, but the difference in ranking meant the difference in strength. The Constellation Master's strength to any constellation was the most important. If the new Constellation Master's strength dropped, then the constellation's strength would definitely drop. The Honorable Martial Alliance's strength could naturally crush Andromeda constellation, but it would definitely not do so. No matter how small the feudal vassals were, they were still targets to rope in. Such wanton humiliation would not benefit the Honorable Martial Alliance, and would only incur the wrath of the small feudal vassals. "Ba Fu, the master is very disappointed in you." Suddenly, a cold voice came out from the black flames. Although these people were under the orders of the master of Andromeda constellation, but Tang Tian did not believe it at all. The Constellation Master had his own pride and bottom line. Unless it was a matter of life and death for the Constellation, he would definitely not use the successor as a bargaining chip. The abnormal scene in front of him revealed a lot of information. Because the chosen successor was usually a young man, no matter how his future achievements were, no matter how wise the Constellation Master was, he could not guarantee that his vision would not be wrong. To have a few more candidates, and then pick the most outstanding one, that was the common practice of the various constellations in Heaven's Road. The competition between the candidates was something that the Constellation Master was happy to see happen. If he liked one of them, he would naturally take care of him, but at the same time, if he could not compare to the others under his care, then there was nothing he could do. Behind the black flame mask, the calm face pulled up the corner of its mouth into an almost undetectable arc. From Ba Fu's expression, Tang Tian had already gotten the answer he wanted. If the successor was able to ascend to the throne of the Constellation Master, then naturally he would be in control of the universe. But there was only one throne, and the rest of the successors, naturally, could only end up in darkness. The successor's position was high and protected, but usually they did not hold any real power. Almost every constellation's master would appoint a few successors. There were naturally many open and secret fights, but to a constellation, ensuring the continuation of the constellation's legacy was always the first priority. Angelina's mind involuntarily jumped out with that word. The man in front of her was completely wrapped in black flames. He was tall, his body was not thick, but rather well-proportioned. His body was straight like a javelin. In another 2 to 3 years, it would be able to complete its true transformation and become a gold-ranked star treasure in one leap. The other party's words had a hidden meaning, as though it was hinting at something, but Zhou Ning was a cautious person and extremely careful. Kill him, Ba Fu suddenly realized and ordered sternly. It should not exist under the sunlight, and should be in the darkness, silently piercing the enemy's throat. Calm down. Calm down. Angelina, you can do it. Andromeda constellation was not the strongest constellation in northern sky, but it was one of the few evergreen trees in northern sky's 19 continents. After generations of accumulation, it allowed them to have extremely deep connections in northern sky's 19 continents. An Andromeda constellation never had a history of attacking other constellations, and the previous constellation masters were the typical moderate faction and had an extremely good reputation in northern sky's 19 continents. Tang Tian turned a deaf ear to her. Because of the strange, true power, his palm was bleeding profusely. Wasn't the honorable martial alliance in a stalemate with Leo constellation? To still have the energy to come here and cause trouble. She hypnotized herself again and again, and finally her breathing calmed down and the fear in her heart lessened. She gathered her courage and carefully sized up the man in front of her. If the situation was normal, it would be correct. I will kill you. Chapter 358. Don't tell me. After accompanying him for a few days, Mingyu had some understanding of Qiu Shan. No matter how arrogant she was, she had to admit that Qiu Shan was the most outstanding man she had ever seen. Suddenly, Tang Tian noticed a carriage. Qiu Shan muttered, I did not think it through. If it is a secluded place, there's a mountain in the west of the city called Bullhead Mountain. The scenery is not bad, and there are not many people. It is a good place. Who is he? Tang Tian asked. The Honorable Martial Alliance's foundation was much more outstanding than what he had imagined. Why me? He decided to spend more time with Miss Mingyu in the next few days. Qiu Shan was filled with confidence. Regardless of looks, family background, or strength, he was the best of the best. In the entire Heaven's Road, it was not that there were none who were stronger than him, but there were not many. Angelina's lips trembled. Her beautiful, deep blue eyes were filled with fear. Father. Their goal was father. Clan Elder Hammer is the chief clan elder. Lady Ollie is Master's sister. The two of them are Master's most trusted people. Only they can enter and exit Fairy Palace. Angelina's face was pale white, but that was definitely Master's order, because the order was given using star power. My friend below the carriage. Please come out yourself. Angelina was extremely intelligent. Upon hearing Tang Tian's words, she immediately understood. After thinking for a moment, she was shocked. No, Master lives in seclusion and rarely goes out. We rarely see her. The order this time was given through Clan Elder Hammer and Lady Ollie. Angelina's gaze was always on Tang Tian. Until now, she did not know anything about him. Who was he? Where did he come from? Why did he save her? She did not know. Her face became even paler, her voice trembling. Thank you, Mr. Qiu. Mingyu thanked him. Miss Mingyu, be careful. Qiu Shan warned, then suddenly laughed. Look at what I said. With Miss Mingyu's strength, to have any ideas about Miss Mingyu, I'm afraid only a sacred saint domain expert would be able to do it. The order to marry you to Zhou Ning was personally given by Asda. Angelina, who was in a panic, was like a drowning person grabbing onto a straw. My father is Ta Dun. He was a commander of the Plateau Army, and the Plateau Army was the only army in Andromeda constellation. Please save my father. Thank you, Mr. Qi. Just leave the carriage. Did she face you in the face? Qiu Shan waved his hand. Miss Mingyu is too polite. He had heard that the Yi family had some relationship with Mingyu, but now it seemed that Mingyu was not satisfied with Yi Zhaoge. This was an opportunity for him. How are your injuries? Is it important? I have a bottle of medicine here. Take it. Qiu Shan did not put on any airs with Ba Fu. With a face of concern, he threw the bottle of medicine to him. A frightening conjecture emerged in her mind. When he left, he had observed carefully Ling Su and Crane's meditation this time would take roughly 15 days. This was crucial to him. He wanted to play down the influence he had on the other him over the past 15 days, especially on his companion. Mingyu did not reply. She looked into the distance and seemed to be in a daze. You're right. Mingyu suddenly smiled brightly. Fairy City was the most central city of Andromeda Constellation and was the hub of Andromeda Constellation, where the fairy palace was built. Mingyu bowed to Qiu Shan. Mingyu is extremely grateful for Brother Qiu's hospitality. Suddenly, Angelina thought of something and said excitedly, Wang Lin Trading. Father said that if we meet with danger, we should go find Wang Lin Trading. Wang Lin's headquarters is at Westwater Street. Ba Fu was moved to tears and immediately said, No problem, no problem. Master, don't worry. Master, please enter the city. Qiu Shan laughed. I don't care. Let them handle it. The reason why Tang Tian noticed the carriage was because in the long queue, only the carriage was moving forward without any worries. Mingyu turned her head and looked at Qiu Shan. Qiu Shan had the unique laziness and confidence of a person in power, instantly revealing it, like a male lion opening his mouth lazily. From start to finish, his body brimmed with power that made people believe in him, as though nothing could stop him. Strong was the most obvious quality he had. From the time he saved her until now, he had not spoken a word to her. When the two of them neared, they realized that Andromeda City was heavily guarded. Every entrance was guarded and checked strictly. Every entrance had a long queue, and all sorts of curses could be heard. But when Ba Fu appeared, all the voices disappeared. In the carriage, a young lady with long hair draped over her shoulders, dressed in snow-white clothes, stood straight, her temperament cold, her appearance beautiful. And beside her, a young man with a serious temperament stood there with a smile. But Mingyu's eyes suddenly became cold and spoke unhurriedly. But Tang Tian's words reminded Angelina. Angelina carefully recalled and immediately found many suspicious points. For such a matter, how could the master be so careless? If she could obtain Mingyu, her value was much higher than 10 Andromeda constellation. Mingyu secretly nodded her head. Qiu Shan was of noble birth, but did not have any arrogance that was rare and precious. Tang Tian did not care about her. He was thinking 15 days of time was enough for him to play a role in the matter. To him, time was everything. He did not want to disrupt his plans, although his intellect was not high. But when he barged in, he was able to create a world. The Bullhead Mountain was not far. In a moment, he landed at the peak. Mingyu saw that she could overlook Andromeda City. The scenery was beautiful, the air was fresh, and she could not help but reveal a satisfied smile. Qiushan was not annoyed at all, but magnanimously admired Mingyu's flawless face. Although he was attracted by Mingyu's beauty, it did not make him lose his reason, and he started to think. Mingyu was not just a flower vase. Regardless of whether it was her personal strength or her unfathomable background, they were all extremely powerful helpers. Mingyu could see the adoration in Qiushan's eyes, but to leave so straightforwardly made her admire him even more. Compared to Qiushan, Yong Xianzhong was inferior. She was curious. Qiushan was already so outstanding, but in the young generation of the Honorable Martial Alliance, he was only ranked third. Then how outstanding were the first and second place? I appreciate Mr. Chio's intentions. Mingyu leaned forward to express her thanks and said indifferently, Mingyu's cultivation is not enough, and I like to be quiet and coexist with nature. I hope Mr. Chio can help me find a secluded place in the wilderness. Bafu's hand was wrapped in bandages, his face ashen, his fierce and ruthless gaze swept across, causing everyone to keep quiet out of fear. Her smile, blossoming with grace and beauty, caused Qiushan to be absent-minded for a moment. But he quickly regained his senses and did not dodge, but praised. Miss Mingyu's smile is the most beautiful masterpiece that I have ever seen in the world. Mingyu looked at the tightly guarded city gates and was surprised. Did something happen? 15 days was just right. The place to stay has already been prepared. It's at Bright Moon Garden. Qiushan laughed. This is the residence of a trading organization's president. The decorations are not bad. The name is also very suitable. Miss Mingyu, please don't mind. The word Brother Chio made Qiushan's heart burst with joy, and he resisted the joy in his heart. Sister Ming does not need to be so courteous to me. I will leave first and not disturb Sister Ming's peace. Qiushan laughed and did not disturb Ah Fu's inspection and directly entered the city. A constellation master could be faked, but a saint treasure could not be faked. A cold and hoarse voice suddenly sounded out, causing Angelina to jump in fright, and subconsciously replied, yes. Seeing Qiushan, Bafu immediately went over to flatter him. With that, he called for everyone to leave and specially ordered his subordinates to guard the foot of the mountain and stop tourists from going up. It was as though he was introducing his own territory and spoke slowly, warmly, and amiably. But from the way he sat, Angelina could tell that he must have received a good education. Even if he sat on the ground, he chose a clean rock and sat upright. He was not like the hired martial artists who sat lazily. Although Andromeda Constellation is just a small constellation, but the scenery in Andromeda City is not bad. Qiushan was refined and courteous, accompanying the beautiful woman. He spoke slowly, but was filled with power and did not make people feel disgusted. Andromeda Constellation in Northern Sky's 19 continents is the most stable, so the local businesses have always been flourishing. 90% of the large trading organizations in Northern Sky have their headquarters in Andromeda City. All of these rich merchants are extremely luxurious, and all of their manners are extremely beautiful. Andromeda City is the most beautiful and flourishing city in Northern Sky. The other party's face was always covered by the black flame mask, and his entire body was covered tightly. She could not see through his background, and the other party did not have any thoughts of removing his mask. Asda was the master of Andromeda Constellation, and had been in charge of Andromeda Constellation for many years. The cold voice was like a knife, but it caused Angelina to calm down. She was not stupid, and being in the palace, she had been exposed to all sorts of plots, and upon calming down, her mind worked very quickly. The most important thing now was to pass the news to her father. If the other party had a plan, then all the people around her would definitely be watched. Angelina gathered her courage. May I ask, who are you? Why did you save me? Clan Elder Hammer and Madame Ollie? He understood the value of his companions more than him, and that was the main reason why he chose to lie low. On this point, him was even more outstanding than her. Who could be trusted? Every constellation master wielded a saint treasure and could casually extract the power of the constellation to record sounds and images. Because only the constellation master who wielded the saint treasure could do that, so it was usually used by the constellation masters to pass down orders. Without hesitation, Tang Tian knocked Angelina out and carried the unconscious Angelina and quietly made his way over. Obviously, the carriage had a huge background, and to them was the best cover. "Why you?" Tang Tian asked back. His tone was ice-cold without a trace of warmth, without any sympathy, without any concern, like a sharp icicle. It pierced into Angelina's heart. Chapter 359. Seems like I need to be more serious. The cold air caused her soft skin to form a layer of goosebumps. Without the protection of her dress, her body was exposed to the air. Her entire body was enveloped by the cold air, and in that moment her mind went blank. She heaved a sigh of relief, but suddenly, from the corner of her eyes, she saw a black figure, and her body froze. Even Tang Tian, upon seeing such a scene, could not help but become interested. He squinted his eyes and locked on to Tang Tian. Tang Tian thought quietly. The corner was pitch black, the family did not seem to be at home, and there was no sound. His face quickly regained his composure, his mind filled with questions, but he could not help but be surprised. "Miss Angelina, it's good that you're fine. When Master heard the news, he wanted to find you, but you've already left the city." When Angelina woke up, she realized she was in a dead end. She opened her eyes in a daze. Looking at the unfamiliar environment, she suspected that she had just slept and that the terrifying things in her mind were all just a dream. But he only had 15 days and did not have time to waste on an unfamiliar lady, no matter how strong or beautiful she was. Cuckoo. Angelina bit her lips tightly and did not make a sound. She knew she did not have any room to bargain. Just that, Tang Tian's action shattered the strange feelings that had just risen in her heart. She had never exposed her body in front of any man before. The old man quickly closed the door, but when he turned, he realized that beside Angelina, there was a man enveloped in black flames, and his face changed. That was not a dream. She relaxed slightly, and her mind worked even faster. This mysterious swordsman's strength was truly unfathomable. She could not imagine, under such tight security, how did he bring her into the city. She did not want him to lose his patience, and did not want him to think that she was a burden. Tang Tian carried Angelina, who had fainted, and quietly left. An inaudible sound came out from behind her. She only felt a chill on her back, and the heavy dress dropped to the ground. Tang Tian seemed to be deep in thought. His cold pupils were like the stars. Tang Tian flicked his wrist. The rapier was like a venomous snake spitting out its tongue, straight towards the ground in front of Angelina. Ooh! When the dust settled, Angelina had completely turned into a gray person. Her entire body was dirty. How could one tell that she was an outstanding beauty? Angelina whispered to Tang Tian and quietly climbed over the wall. Tang Tian glanced at it, and a hint of admiration flashed in his eyes. He did not have a good impression of a flower vase. A brainless flower vase was of no use to his plan. He had very little time, only 15 days. No matter how much he did in these 15 days, it was impossible for him to complete the entire plan. Mingyu stared at him for a long time and suddenly smiled. Angelina hugged her chest tightly, not knowing what to do. He did not believe that Xiaoshan was a fool. Night enveloped Fairy City. Although there were martial artists patrolling the city, compared to the guards outside the city, it was much looser. After all, this was the most flourishing city in Fairy City, where countless of rich merchants and influential people gathered. Bafu had someone backing him up, so he did not dare to be reckless. This mysterious lady made him cautious. For her to be able to sense his approach, either she was stronger than Xiaoshan, or she had trained in a special martial technique. If not for his nimble and careful movements, he would have been knocked down by her. Tang Tian commented indifferently, then turned and left. Angelina's face became even redder. She hissed twice, but did not make a sound, and turned around. He wants to help me take off my skirt? That's so embarrassing. But she bit her lips and did her best not to make sound. And that sword was very special. Turn around. Tang Tian's voice did not have any warmth. That's right. Another deep and resounding voice came out. A tall and sturdy man appeared on the stairs. Angelina came out. She had changed into an ordinary commoner's clothes. Tang Tian frowned. The coarse cloth clothes on her body could not hide her beauty, especially her exquisite and smooth skin. Under the coarse cloth, it gave off an even more enchanting beauty. No matter what you do, money is always the most important factor. She looked at Tang Tian. Seeing that Tang Tian did not object, she gathered her courage and walked towards the entrance of the alley. After walking a few steps, she could not help but turn her head to look. Seeing that Tang Tian was following behind her, she heaved a sigh of relief. Angelina was careful not to make any noise. She took down the clothes that were hanging on the wall, looked around, and ran to a corner to change. She would not let the other party see her. She was after all a girl that was not even 20 years old. To think of avoiding Tang Tian's gaze was completely instinctive. The old man carefully looked at Angelina, his face revealing a look of joy, and said softly, "Quickly come in." Even though he had the title of the #1 martial artist, but he was very clear in Fairy City. There were only 5 martial artists that could defeat him. These martial artists were all hidden in the inner courtyards of the big families, and unless it was a life or death situation, they would definitely not appear. To incur the wrath of the masses, Master Qiu Shan would be the first to kill him. Creak, the wooden door slowly opened, revealing a face full of wrinkles. The rest of the plan required Angelina herself to complete. A pure flower vase, in such a whirlpool, would definitely be torn to pieces. Destined to fail, there was no need to start at all. She was flustered. An extremely minute explosion sound came out, but the ground in front of Angelina suddenly exploded without any warning, raising a cloud of dust, enveloping Angelina, who was caught off guard. Angelina was able to become the 3rd successor of Andromeda constellation, not because of her face. She took a deep breath, and her expression became calm again. The other party did not even warn her and directly knocked her out. Such a violent attitude revealed a lot of information. At least the other party was not sent by her father to save her. About 700 m away from Mingyu, in the dense foliage, Tang Tian, whose entire body was wrapped in flames, stood there silently like a spirit, quietly watching Mingyu unleash her sword. Suddenly, her vision darkened. A black figure appeared in front of her. Just that. Can't you be more gentle? She used both hands to touch her back. The buttons of her dress were at the back. Thin and tough ribbons, tied into complicated knots, threaded through the buttons. To make the dress even more fluffy and three-dimensional, there were many flexible and tough ribbons at the bottom of the dress, making it extremely heavy. If he wanted to wear it without it falling off, he had to tie it very tightly. Usually, she would ask the servants to help her put it on and untie it, but at the moment, after touching her back for half a day, she did not expect the ribbons to be in a mess. The ribbons were woven from the silk of the multicolored light silkworm and were extremely tough and hard to cut. I'll go and change. These people represented the various families of Andromeda constellation, and even a master of Andromeda constellation, Asda, was extremely apprehensive, and the current Qiu Shan was the same. Angelina walked to the door. She looked at Tang Tian. Seeing that Tang Tian did not have any intention to speak, she clenched her teeth and knocked on the door. Angelina did not react at the start, but very quickly, she understood Tang Tian's intention. This mister saved me. Angelina sensed the old man's suspicions and bowed. My father once told me, if I were to meet with any danger, I should come to your organization for help. Angelina immediately entered the door. He quietly stood at the top of the wall, but coincidentally placed his body in the shadow cast by the eaves, and from there, he could see the entire alley. The things he knew were far more than him, and at times he envied the other him for his naivety and carefree nature. That ability to not put anything in his heart was probably comparable to the strongest unique martial techniques. He actually did not sense it at all. If it was any other time, he would be somewhat curious about such a strong and special lady, and might even spar with her. Mingyu waited for a long time, but the carriage did not have any movements. Her face changed. She suddenly flicked her wrist. The sword light was like snow. The carriage suddenly split into two, but the bottom of the carriage was empty. An old voice came out from inside. He never thought that in such a desolate place like Andromeda Constellation, there would actually be such a flourishing place. And the wealth of Andromeda City was out of his expectations. He was not that crazy young lad who did not know anything. In the flourishing street in front of him, he could see an astonishing amount of money flowing. Until now, Angelina's performance had satisfied him. Needless to say, Angelina knew that he was not happy with her wasting time. She blushed and explained, I can't untie the ribbon on my back. Tang Tian expressionlessly kept his rapier, and the back of Angelina's dress, from top to bottom, was split into two. Untie the buttons on her dress? He had never learned such a thing before. That's great. Sigh. Wong Lin Organization was located on the east side of West Water Street. The main door was hidden under an ancient tree, green stone walls, elmwood door. It was extremely simple, completely different from the colorful and gold-painted courtyards they had seen before. If not for the wooden sign hanging on the door, with the words Wong Lin Organization written on it, the two of them would definitely not have noticed this shop. She noticed the clothes hanging in the air at the side of the alley, and her eyes lit up. Her clothes were too eye-catching, and she had to disguise herself. Her completely exposed back could be seen. Her figure was extremely good. Her skin was especially exquisite, smooth and glossy, and a blush spread across her snow-white body. Angelina dared to guarantee that she had never seen such a person before, but at the moment, she could not retreat. My father asked me to come here to ask for help. Look at the reality, Angelina. At night, West Water Street was ablaze with lights, all sorts of tall buildings and pavilions, stacked layer upon layer. Every inch of land was a work of heaven, carvings of dragons and phoenixes, flowers and plants, extremely luxurious. Looking at the shops, one could not see the end, only to see the lights like stars, facing the water, people shuttling back and forth, bustling with activity. Angelina looked around, her eyes lit up. This is the lower street alley. Let's go there. The shape of the buttocks is not bad. She had met a powerful opponent. To be able to sneak under Qiu Shan's eyes. He was strong and daring. She did not expect Andromeda Constellation to be filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. She was suddenly looking forward to this trip to Andromeda Constellation. Her body froze. You better find out later. Chapter 360. If Qiu Shan succeeded. The hoarse and cold voice was like a basin of ice water, drenching her from head to toe. Angelina woke up. She bit her lips tightly and did not say a word. The rapier in Tang Tian's hand disappeared again. Angelina muttered to herself, her eyes revealing a look of fear. Angelina was shocked. She flew forward and supported Noelle, who was on the verge of falling. She turned angrily and screamed, "Why did you do this?" Tang Tian was surprised. Angelina's quick thinking surprised him. As for the matter, he had long guessed it correctly, other than the details that he did not know. The second question, is Asda alive or dead? Tang Tian threw out his second question. Xiao. Fierce Tiger's body changed again, guarding the door tightly. Angelina's eyes sparkled, her beautiful face shining with intelligence, her face revealing a look of excitement. Noel's face changed, his eyes revealing a look of shock. He had been in the army for a long time, and had a much deeper understanding of war than Angelina. He knew, if this matter was to affect him deeply, it could even change the situation of the world. I need to clarify a few questions. Why is Ata done? Tang Tian asked straightforwardly. The soundless roar went straight into Tang Tian's ears, causing his eardrums to tremble. The cold and sharp sword tip was pressed against her throat, causing her body to freeze. Suddenly, the torrential attacks disappeared. On their faces, they were overwhelmed with shock. The low whistling sound enveloped Tang Tian. Noel's grab was simple and unadorned, but it gave off a feeling that it could not be avoided. Noel's face congealed. Yes, we have always been discussing about this question. Before we came, there was actually a rebellion in the army, but Master dealt with it in time, and the rebels were all eliminated. We still do not know the reason, but the information that we have obtained is the second successor, Kylie and her family, and the great clan elder, as well as the Master's bodyguard, Ba Fu, participated in this matter. Noel looked at Tang Tian in front of him, his face full of admiration, as though he did not care about his own injuries. He had been in the army for a long time, and getting injured was a common occurrence. He was long used to it, and this injury to him was almost non-existent. Angelina's mouth was also wide open and looked at Tang Tian in a daze. Between the shadows of his fists and his figure, the tiger form changed again. His right palm turned from real to illusory, and all the power was concentrated on his left fist. Her voice stopped abruptly. Noel grinned, and his eyes suddenly became fierce. It seems that my friend is not giving me face. Then don't blame me for being rude. Good skills. He praised in a deep voice, his expression solemn. His right palm didn't change its direction, but his body's posture changed, like a tiger pouncing on its prey. The most amazing thing was that among the afterimages he created, there was a brightly colored tiger about to pounce. Tang Tian's mind did not fluctuate in the slightest. His eyes turned cold, and the hand holding the sword did not move an inch. Half of the sword's tip seemed to suddenly disappear, leaving only half of the sword's blade. He was already regretting his actions. He wanted to put some distance between them and stop them. Noel took a step forward and rushed to the front of Tang Tian. Opening up his 5 fingers, he grabbed towards Tang Tian like a cattail leaf fan. What replied him was a cold sentence. Noel's body went numb, but the sword tip gently swept past his body. He only felt his entire body becoming light, and the sinister, true power in his body was swept away. Armies did not have martial artists that used rapiers, but there were many in the fairy palace. The ones that used rapiers the most were the palace swordsmen. For the swordsmen that walked in the palace, the rapier's decorative nature greatly exceeded its practical use. Sigh, did they sell the entire Andromeda constellation? But to be able to think of it so quickly, it seemed that Angelina was not only beautiful. Angelina was anxious. She wanted to speak, but she shut her mouth. She was also filled with curiosity towards the mysterious and powerful swordsman. Furthermore, the things that happened on the road surfaced in her mind. She chose to shut her mouth. The arched rapier accurately struck the tiger's head. Bang! The tiger's head exploded. Noel groaned, and his tall and sturdy body swayed. A wave of extremely sinister energy followed the rapier and drilled into his meridians. Tang Tian did not care about Noel's guard against him. He did not speak any nonsense. To him, time was more important than anything else. He did not have the time to waste on meaningless probing. Seeing that Angelina was safe, Noel heaved a sigh of relief. He had received the master's orders to travel through the night, but he did not expect that he would be too late, causing him to be extremely anxious. If anything happened to Angelina, then he would not be able to redeem himself even if he died 10,000 times. Qiu Shan is one of the successors of the Honorable Martial Alliance. To him, the most important thing now is to be able to raise his position. And now that the Honorable Martial Alliance is in conflict with the Leo constellation, it is almost like a war. If that is the case, Qiu Shan needs merits. Angelina muttered to herself. She seemed to have caught onto a faintly discernible thread and continued to comb through it. Ordinary small merits have no meaning to Qiu Shan, and to be able to make him run to Andromeda constellation at this time, it must be a huge scheme. And his first target is father. Wait, I got it. The rapier in Tang Tian's hand disappeared. Noel shuddered and said anxiously, "We need to immediately inform Master." He had been in the army for a long time, and his style of doing things was straightforward. The praise he had for Tang Tian was from the bottom of his heart. In the army, there was only one person that he was convinced of, and that was the commander. Noel, who was about to run to report the news, suddenly stopped in his tracks. He had no choice but to be on the defensive. What conditions did the great clan elder and Kylie give? Noel's body turned sluggish, his palm was in pain, and the cold sword concept drilled into his palm. His face changed, all the hairs on his body stood. Without thinking, his left hand formed a fist and struck towards Tang Tian's lower body. I have 2 questions. A hoarse and cold voice suddenly came out. Noel heaved a sigh of relief and could not help but praise. Friend, good skills. Angelina's tensed-up state of mind finally relaxed. Noel was her father's #1 fierce general. His strength was not inferior to Bafu. The reason why Noel was not famous was because he had always been in the army and had never displayed his strength outside. Noel heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like the opponent did not have the intention to take his life. He was about to speak, but suddenly the true power that was drilled into his body suddenly activated. His face turned white, his throat tasted sweet, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Friend, we need to get straight to the point. Noel was rough but meticulous, although up till now, Tang Tian's identity was a complete mystery to them. But there was one thing without a doubt. The mysterious and powerful swordsman saving Angelina was definitely not a coincidence. The sound of his palm being pierced was concentrated like rain. The goddamn swordsman, the speed of his sword, was far beyond his imagination. Noel felt as though his arms were being pierced into a hornet's nest. The bricks beneath his feet were continuously breaking. It was not that the rapier was not powerful, but the sissies were useless. Tang Tian used the rapier as a whip, his elbow bent outwards and fiercely pulled out. Speak, Noel said generously. The opponent's background was mysterious. Maybe he had other sources of information. Chi. The light aura in Noel's eyes exploded. The opponent had just unleashed his sword stance, and he could feel an extremely sharp and cold sword concept piercing through his eyebrows. Noel wanted to expel the strange, true power out of his meridians, but his dense, true power was actually unable to produce any effect on the fine strand of true power. The strand of true power was extremely sinister. As long as there was a gap, it would drill in. But Tang Tian did not have the intention to stop. Noel knew he had messed up. He took a deep breath and said, Friend, I do not have any ill intentions. Roar. Noel's gaze once again landed on Tang Tian and said, Friend, please show me your true face. The rapier effortlessly pierced through the palm wind, right on the forehead of the gorgeous tiger. Noel and Angelina were startled by Tang Tian's words. Angelina suddenly woke up. That's right, she had actually neglected the honorable martial alliance. Qiushan's involvement, there must be a reason. With Qiushan's position, ordinary benefits were definitely not enough for him to make a move. Uncle Noel. Angelina was pleasantly surprised. Tang Tian's body suddenly arched. His right palm that was in front of his chest had an additional rapier, the sword tip pointing upwards. She was extremely clear on the happenings in the palace, and had personally experienced it. She dared to confirm that Noel's words were completely correct. Tang Tian was completely oblivious. The sharp piercing sound was completely different from the gentleness before. Uncle Noel. Even with the black flame mask, Noel could still feel the biting cold light in the eyes behind the mask, filled with danger and aggressiveness. Noel felt that he had nothing better to do to actually find trouble with such a person. First, what is Qiushan's goal? In the past, Noel had always looked down on the court swordsmen. He thought that they were flashy but had no substance and were a bunch of sissies. As for those famous court swordsmen, they were all defeated by him in just a few moves. Noel smiled at her. My little princess, don't worry. Master has already received the news. I never thought that I would be too late. Luckily you're fine. That way I won't be chopped up by them. Of course Noel would not believe it so easily, but he was not stupid enough to retort. Seems like we have a common enemy. I have just arrived in Fairy City and do not understand the situation, friend. Do you have any suggestions? My goal is Qiushan. Tang Tian found a good reason for himself. If Angelina knew of Tang Tian's thoughts, she would definitely be ashamed to death. An almost undetectable hissing sound. The rapier's front half was vibrating at an astonishing frequency. At the same time it disappeared, it released a sound like a poisonous snake hissing, the dangerous and sinister chi piercing straight into people's hearts. If not, you would already be dead. The true power was as fine as a hair, but it was extremely sinister and dangerous. After entering his meridians, it actually followed his meridians and flowed in reverse. The breathtaking tiger roar sounded out again. Noel's left fist had a multicolored tiger head enveloping his fist. It was glaring angrily, its mouth open wide, as though it was about to devour someone. And its body was faintly discernible in between Noel's figure. The hazy tiger body, its movements, was filled with astonishing, explosive power. Angelina said hatefully, if not for the Honorable Martial Alliance's interference, they would not dare to do so. But it is obvious that the Honorable Martial Alliance has given them confidence. I can save you, and I can kill you. Father is the commander of the Plateau Army. The army is stationed at the Immortal Hunter Stargate, and from there we can enter Orion Constellation. Orion Constellation is Lion King Liang's firm ally, and is behind Leo Constellation. Master once saved Brother Jin Jun's life. Brother Jin Jun is the first successor of Orion Constellation, and is the current master of Orion Constellation's youngest son, and is deeply doted on. The Honorable Martial Alliance definitely wants to use this point. I never thought that such a secret matter, the Honorable Martial Alliance, would find out about it. That's right, Kylan also knows about it. That must be it. First secretly control Andromeda Constellation, then slowly infiltrate into Orion Constellation, and bury a nail behind Leo Constellation, and at the most crucial moment, give a fatal blow. Chapter 361. Let me go down. Angelina's tears flowed. Everyone looked at each other and laughed. She had a complicated view of Tang Tian. He was mysterious and strong, cold and unfeeling, with a heart of stone. Women had no effect on him, and he was extremely intelligent. He was a man of few words, but as long as he opened his mouth, it would always hit the spot. Up till now, her and Uncle Noel's reactions were all within his rhythm, including the infiltration into the fairy palace. Angelina's face immediately flushed red. In front of so many people, to be called a burden, she felt that she was about to explode. If not for the fact that Tang Tian's cold-bloodedness was too strong in her heart, she would have retorted, Master, Miss Mingyu is waiting for you in the hall. That's right. Xiao Shan took big strides and took over the topic. Northern Sky's 19 continents, Andromeda Constellation has the longest history. They've already been active since ancient times. Up till now, they have risen and fallen, hailed as an evergreen tree, but they have never achieved hegemony. Such a pity. No, we cannot let Uncle Noel sacrifice himself for nothing. Angelina's voice was filled with disappointment. She wanted to get down from Tang Tian, but her body was unable to move. Outside the fairy palace, the two of them hid under the shadows of the eaves, where the guards could not see. Tang Tian carried Angelina, quietly circling around the fairy palace, and finally found the perfect hiding spot. Seems like, unknowingly, he had lost a point in front of Mingyu. Xiao Shan laughed at himself. Angelina felt that he would not be moved by anything. But when she saw that he was actually staring at the sunset, as though he was moved, Angelina thought that she was seeing things. Tang Tian did not speak anymore. Noel's expression became serious. Xiao Shan's banquet will start at 9 p.m., and we will attack at 9 p.m. sharp. You all must not waste time. Noel turned and faced the rest. Let's cut the bullshit, brothers. We will meet again after death. 9 p.m. sharp. Let's go. Creating a diversion. A cold voice came out from behind the black flame mask. He was a person who caused people to fear, and if possible, Angelina did not want to meet him. Regardless of who it was, to have such a terrifying enemy, they would not be able to eat or sleep in peace. The space under the eaves was just right to hide one person, but now there was another person. Tang Tian had no choice but to let Angelina stick to him. Time slowly passed. The restaurant became more and more bustling, but Tang Tian was like an old monk, not moving an inch. Angelina also felt impressed. For him to maintain the same posture for such a long time, and with a person hanging on him, he was actually able to do it without moving. To Angelina and the others, he could not move. If Asda was Asda, it would be, and Asda would be saved. If Asda was still alive, then it was very likely that she was imprisoned. If that was the case, then everything would be fine as long as they could save Asda. If she was, then it would be, Tang would be. We will sneak in from the east gate of the fairy palace. That is the most suitable place to break through. Noel grinned. Of course, that place is definitely a trap. They seem to have gathered all the elite forces that Fairy City could use. All of them had light in their eyes, and their bodies were filled with ferocious chi. Her mind was blank for a long time, and Angelina finally regained her composure. The evening sun shone on her body, but it did not have much heat, and instead had the smell of sunset. The second day had passed. Time was so short. Tang Tian suddenly stopped and quietly looked at the red sun that was about to set. It was still silence. There are not many men like Brother Qi in this world. Mingyu changed the topic, but yesterday I met a very interesting person. Brother Qi, you have to be careful. Tang Tian ignored her. Angelina did not expect such a scene. She was hugged tightly by Tang Tian and was extremely flustered. The last time Tang Tian had seen through her, she had suppressed it. But now, she was hugged tightly, and the warmth of his body made her mind go blank. Wait, the reply was still cold. Wait, Tang Tian coldly spat out a word, without any intention to explain. Tang Tian was like a block of wood, not moving an inch. So, to find out if the master had been killed or not was the most pressing matter for them. Only when the sun had completely disappeared did Tang Tian retract his gaze. Angelina panicked. Uncle Noel and the rest have moved. How can we still wait here? This is an opportunity that Uncle Noel and the rest have exchanged with their lives. Andromeda constellation that was originally thought to be easy had suddenly become interesting. That's true. What's wrong with being stable? Leave the battles to the men. Qiushan laughed. Angelina pushed the door open. The room was dark, and she turned on the lights. In the corner of the shadows, a figure quietly sat cross-legged. She looked deeply at Tang Tian and said, Tonight, Qiushan is hosting a banquet for a lady on the fairy lake, and the experts by his side are all on the boat. If we want to enter the fairy palace, this is our best chance. When his subordinates left the room, Qiushan's gaze suddenly became cold. Mingyu waved her sword at the carriage. That meant that she had sensed someone hiding in the carriage. Walking out of the room, the sky outside was already evening, but his gaze did not thaw. The other party had snuck into the carriage that he was in and immediately thought of the mysterious man that saved Angelina. Even Mingyu was not able to force the other party out. He was truly powerful. The subordinate's dejection was greatly reduced. He was secretly moved. Without saying anything, he responded and left. Noel raised his thumb. It's so easy to talk to intelligent people. Angelina will bring you to another path, and we will do our best to attract their attention. Brother Qiu is ambitious. Mingyu turned her head and said quietly, but most women prefer stability. It was truly powerful. Qiushan would definitely hold the advantage. His cards were too good. He had the second in line Kai Lin, the Imperial bodyguard Captain Ba Fu, and Angelina suspected that the great clan elder had already sided with Qiushan. As long as the first in line Sha Fu was in trouble, they would be in the majority. Angelina suspected that Sha Fu had already been killed, as Sha Fu had not appeared for almost 2 weeks. I'm coming. Hey! Angelina shouted in dissatisfaction. After knowing that Tang Tian was not old, she realized that she had become more daring. Qiushan laughed out loud. Thank you for Sister Ming's concern. To be able to be called interesting by Sister Ming, he must not be ordinary. If there's a chance, I want to meet him. The Fairy Lake's best viewing period is only 24 days. Our luck is good, and we are just in time. If we miss it, it would be a pity. I have arranged a banquet on the lake for Sister Ming to drink and admire the lake. Isn't that great? Mingyu nodded her head and thanked him. Brother Qiu has worked hard. I will listen to Brother Qiu's arrangements. Darkness came. It was a 16-story restaurant. It was brightly lit, filled with voices. It was extremely bustling. There was a distance between the restaurant and the fairy palace, but it was able to observe the fairy palace. Tang Tian and Angelina hid under the eaves of the restaurant. The lights above were as bright as day, causing the eaves to become even darker. It was just that the space inside was very narrow, and Tang Tian had no choice but to hug Angelina, completely hiding in the shadows. When the time neared 9, Angelina saw that Tang Tian did not have any intention of moving, and could not help but urge, "We need to move." Tang Tian did not care about her. In the darkness, his eyes were as bright as a snake coiling its body in the darkness, waiting to strike the cold and emotionless snake pupils. She felt as though she was wrapped around a wooden stake. Angelina knew that he was not someone who would take advantage of her. Adding the last time, it was already the second time. She boldly asked, "Hey, why are we here?" "Wait." The cold voice did not have any warmth. Inside the hall, a snow-white figure stood gracefully. She was studying the paintings on the wall, her black hair draped over her shoulders. She was as beautiful as a painting. Hearing Qiu Shan's footsteps, Mingyu did not even turn her head and said softly, "Although Andromeda constellation is not considered a big constellation, but it has a long history, generation after generation of people managing Andromeda constellation to such a scale, it is considered commendable. This cold-blooded person still has warmth." In the blink of an eye, the cold intent on his face disappeared, and he once again became his usual sunny self-confidence. He pushed open the door and walked out. "I don't want to bring a burden. Give me the map." Noel laughed, and a few people behind him also chuckled. Noel laughed and waved his hands. "Partner, don't be like that. Other than Angelina, no one else can enter. The power of the Saint Treasure envelopes the entire fairy palace. Our little princess is the successor. With her, you cannot alert the enemy and quietly pass through." Tang Tian's reply was simple and cold. "There are no signs of fighting. The carriage was split into two. It should be caused by a blade or sword. There's a very faint true power undulation on the broken part. This subordinate is unable to decipher it." He once again took a step forward. A blush crept up Angelina's neck. Under his cold pupils, his lips were curved, as though he was smiling but not smiling, but there was no warmth. The first thought that popped up in her mind made Angelina feel that she did not know whether to laugh or cry. Angelina, who had calmed down, quickly regained her sharp observation skills. The opponent was very young. It was as though he was born for the darkness, and forever allowed himself to be in the darkness. Qiu Shan listened to his subordinate's report and laughed without a care. "Miss Mingyu's sword technique is unparalleled. It is normal for you to not be able to decipher it, so don't be discouraged. It has been hard on you these few days. Go to Old Hu and collect the 5 million star coins and have a good rest. Fairy City is filled with beauties. Yinji Alley is one of a kind. Ha! Go, go, go." Tang Tian disappeared and immediately appeared behind Angelina. Not allowing her to object, he lifted her up and disappeared. "What are we waiting for?" Angelina did not understand, but she knew that the opponent's wisdom and experience were far above hers. Angelina also stopped and looked at Tang Tian with a look of surprise. Chapter 362. Zhou Ning, who was beside Qiu Shan, was enraged. Who didn't shut their mouth properly? Mingyu took a sip, her eyes revealing a thoughtful look. "Asda is dead. That's right. Fourth Elder is right." The surface of Fairy Lake was wide, and it was late autumn. The blue light algae's brilliant but short-lived life had blossomed completely in these 25 days. The surface of the lake stretched as far as the eye could see. Specks of blue light scattered in every corner of Fairy Lake. It was a spectacular sight, with such a short period of time, unless the other party was prepared. Although no one knew where Mingyu came from, but Qiu Shan's fawning over her naturally could not be hidden from their eyes. In their hearts, Qiu Shan's identity was extremely noble, and he was willing to lower himself to curry favor with Miss Mingyu. So Miss Mingyu's identity was definitely not one that they could provoke. He stood up and said, "This matter is over. I wish to leave." Would Sister Ming be willing to accompany me? When everyone heard this, their hearts were already clear. His lord must have rejected the honorable martial alliance. General Ta Dun must have played an important role in this. Although General Ta Dun was not as powerful as the great clan elder in Andromeda Constellation, he was still one of the most powerful people in Andromeda Constellation. How could he let his daughter suffer? On the other hand, the neutral faction was overjoyed. The boat glided silently. The blue ball of light floated along with the ripples of the water. The blue ripples were like a pair of scissors cutting the surface of the lake. "What is it?" Great Elder asked in a deep voice. No one found it strange that Xioshan was going to Andromeda Constellation. The prelude to the conflict between the Honorable Martial Alliance and the Leo Constellation had already begun. The few large armies of the Leo Constellation had already started to move out frequently, and the situation between the two parties was on the verge of exploding. The banquet was extraordinarily lively. The Great Elder was furious. "How dare you? They must be tired of living. How dare he barge into the palace? Bafu, are all your men useless?" The Great Elder smiled. "Such a beautiful scene. Talking about such things will spoil the mood. Let's just talk about the wind and moon. We only talk about love." No one cared about Xioshan. Everyone flew up, and in the blink of an eye, only Xioshan and the other two were left on the boat. How could this be? Xioshan spoke frankly with assurance, obviously putting in some effort. Suddenly, a guard rushed in with a flustered expression. The Great Elder frowned. "Speak." Looking down from the sky, Fairy Lake was like the night sky, full of stars. Recently, all kinds of rumors had been running rampant in the city, and it was impossible to distinguish the truth from the lies. Xioshan's face was filled with regret. "Then we can only part here. Sister Ming has a sword in her hand and has nowhere to go. I have some trifling matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first." Although his tone was regretful, there was no hesitation on his face. After bidding farewell, he soared into the sky with Zhou Ning. The other people all stood up and raised their wine cups. No matter what, Xioshan's identity could not be neglected. My God, it was Noel. Noel from the Plateau Army. Xioshan raised his wine cup and said clearly, "This time coming to Andromeda Constellation, I have benefited a lot. Andromeda Constellation is one of the most important constellations in the northern sky's 19 continents. And I've always thought that with Andromeda Constellation's position and power, it should be of greater use in the northern sky's 19 continents, and even in the entire Heaven's Road. We, the Honorable Martial Alliance, have always been committed to the peace and development of Heaven's Road, and on this point, we have the same starting point as Andromeda Constellation. I can understand Her Majesty Asda's concerns. There's still a lot of time in the future, and I believe that everyone will have the opportunity to work together again. Since the start, I have been indebted to everyone's hospitality, and I will borrow the great clan elder's light to toast everyone." Zhou Ning was enraged, but Xioshan stopped him. He stood up and said, "The innocent will be innocent. The guilty will be guilty. Great clan elder, please clear this one's name." All the families that were waiting to curry favor with the Honorable Martial Alliance looked at each other, their faces filled with bewilderment. Did the master change his mind? The conflict between the two absolute overlords, once it started, would definitely be a war that affected the entire Heaven's Road. In such a war, no constellation would be able to escape. Everyone's expressions, Xioshan's face did not change. "I will drink first as a sign of respect." "So beautiful." Ming Yu's soft voice floated in the night wind. At the moment, the Honorable Martial Alliance wanted to use diplomatic methods to rope in allies, and that was normal. Not only Andromeda Constellation, the other constellations also sent envoys from the Honorable Martial Alliance. Xioshan slowly poured a cup of wine and sipped it. Xioshan said straightforwardly, "If I did not meet Sister Ming, I am afraid I would have missed out on such a beautiful scenery. I need to thank Sister Ming." Ming Yu unexpectedly shook her head. "It is not too late for me to leave after enjoying the 24 days of Fairy Lake." Truly a powerful person. Everyone immediately replied, "That's right, that's right." Many people glared at Xioshan. Ming Yu, who was sitting at the side, quietly watched Xioshan. Qiu Shan's face did not have any sense of defeat. His eyes were as bright as a hunter's. Snatch the saint treasure, Tang Tian said coldly, then carried Angelina. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he rushed towards the majestic palace. For example, the rumor that the master had bestowed Angelina to Qiu Shan's right-hand man Zhou Ning made people feel puzzled, but felt that it was not groundless. And the rumor that the master did not like the honorable martial alliance also spread far and wide. Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them, their faces revealing expressions of disbelief. They had never thought that the enemies who barged into the palace were actually General Ta Dun's men. He raised his wine cup and downed it in one gulp. In the shadows outside the palace, Angelina looked at the incoming group of people in shock. The person leading them was actually the great clan elder. Everyone was in an uproar. It was only 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. The other party was not afraid. If you do not do anything shameful, you will not be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. Great clan elder, there's so many people here today, why not let everyone see for themselves who has the guts to dare to barge into my fairy palace? The inside of the boat was extremely spacious and had long prepared a banquet. Hearing that, everyone took their seats. Qiu Shan was a distinguished guest representing the honorable martial alliance, and naturally could not be neglected, and the great clan elder's position in Fairy City was also revered. For him to be the one to receive them, it was proper etiquette, and no one found it strange. Furthermore, in the past few days, everyone had heard that Qiu Shan had frequently entered the palace to discuss with the master, and both parties seemed to have a lot of arguments. Seeing that, the great clan elder clenched his teeth. Ba Fu, open your fairy mirror. And to the tyrants of Andromeda constellation, an unavoidable war meant that they had to choose a side. The Honorable Martial Alliance was currently the #1 powerhouse and had dominated Heaven's Road for many years compared to Leo constellation. Of course, there were many who objected, thinking that the war had not even started, and to prematurely decide on their own side was extremely unwise. The great clan elder's face changed. Not good. Ta Dun wants to betray us. Everyone, enter the palace to support the master. The guard could only bite the bullet. Someone is barging into the palace. Qiu Shan laughed out loud. Angelina is innocent, no matter, as long as General Ta Dun does not have any misunderstandings. Everyone started to cheer and stood up to toast Qiu Shan. Qiu Shan did not reject anyone, and the cups were emptied. Brother Qiu has worked hard. Mingyu nodded her head and thanked him. When everyone sat down again, the great clan elder then explained, Mr. Qiu, please do not blame her. The master has many misgivings. Angelina, that little lass, I do not know where she heard the rumors, but she actually thought that the master wanted to marry her to Mr. Zhou and cause a few misunderstandings and let Mr. Qiu see a joke. At this time, the great clan elder laughed. Everyone take your seats. Don't let the food get cold. The guards and the ambushers were fighting. The situation was extremely intense. The floor was littered with corpses. Some of them were enemies, some of them were guards. Everyone stopped what they were doing at the same time. The banquet that had just been bustling with noise and excitement suddenly became deathly silent. Mingyu stood at the bow of the boat, the night breeze caressing her face. She squinted her eyes, feeling extremely comfortable. Qiu Shan saw that she liked it, and did not say anything, stood at the side, and gazed into the distance. Tang Tian's voice was still cold, but it made Angelina feel as though she was grasping onto a life-saving straw. Her face was already pale. We have fallen into a trap. What do we do? Is Ta Dun crazy? The small mirror shot out a ray of light, and an intense battle appeared in front of everyone. Finished, he downed the wine. Qiu Shan's mouth blossomed into a smile. He raised the wine cup in his hand and gestured to Mingyu. Sister Ming, please. Hearing that, Ba Fu did not speak any nonsense, and immediately took out a small mirror. This fairy mirror was a silver star treasure of Andromeda constellation, and was able to communicate with the fairy hoop in the fairy palace, and see the majority of the images in the palace. The master had not expressed his position, and that was the reason why the rumors were spreading. Just then, someone in the crowd said coldly, "General Ba Fu, don't you have the fairy mirror? Why not open it and see who did it?" Some people saw that the master had seen through their plot and are trying to fish in troubled waters and want to harm our Andromeda constellation. The guard looked around and revealed a look of hesitation. Qiu had long heard of the 24 days of beautiful scenery of the fairy lake, but it was the first time seeing it and was equally shocked. He slowly exhaled, regained his senses, and said softly, "This is just the beginning. In the 24 days, the blue light algae will experience germination, maturation, and decline. The mature blue light algae will occupy the entire lake, and the fairy lake will become a lake that emits blue light. And in the last few days, the blue light algae will have formed fruits, and the blue light will disappear. And at that time, the fruits will explode, releasing an astonishing number of seeds. These seeds are as fine as dust, releasing a dense blue light, and will be sprayed 10 m into the air by the blue light algae. At that time, the fairy lake will be a spectacular sight." Standing at the bow of the boat, Mingyu watched the tranquil surface of the lake converge with the stars in the sky, and an indescribable emotion rose in her heart. Mingyu smiled, turned, and bowed to the rest of the people on the boat. "I've made everyone wait." Mingyu clapped her hands and praised. "Brother Qiu can turn your hands into clouds, turn your hands into rain. I admire you." The fairy palace was not extravagant in the previous generations of Constellation Masters, but because Andromeda Constellation did not experience the flames of war, the previous generations of Constellation Masters slowly expanded, and the current scale was rather astonishing, forming a palace complex. Compared to Leo Constellation, the new overlord that was born from war, the honorable martial alliance's methods were much more experienced. The one who stood out was the fourth clan elder. He was a just person and did not fear power and had a great reputation. Mingyu's eyes flashed a look of admiration. Ba Fu immediately ran over. "Great clan elder, all the guards are on duty. This subordinate will rush over." Chapter 363. Her clothes were once again cut into two from her back, and her body was once again exposed to the air. Quick! Her face was still pale white, but the stubbornness and determination in her eyes was slowly stirred up. As for the palace, they could only close one eye to the situation. All the young ladies had respectable positions, and if they were to be overly involved and offend them, who knew when they would be plotted against? Enter the palace. Tang Tian did not have the intention to discuss with Angelina and directly ordered. Angelina was familiar with the place and very quickly came to a half-sealed corner. She touched a brick on the wall for a moment. Click, click, click. A small door appeared in front of the two of them. Upon entering the master's palace, the thick and pungent smell of blood immediately entered their noses. Angelina covered her mouth, her face filled with shock. Her tears flowed down uncontrollably. The palace was filled with blood, and in the pool of blood were corpses. It was a terrible sight to behold. The matter of the female servants made Tang Tian extremely satisfied with his gains. Moreover, the location was perfect for bearing a nail. The ice-cold, slender sword tip was pressed against Angelina's throat, the blade slowly lifting up her flawless chin. Tang Tian's figure flashed and appeared in front of the fairy hoop. Angelina's face was pale white. She was dazed. It was an ambush. Qiu had long set up an ambush for them. The swordsman could see through it, but he did not warn her. Angelina's mind was in a mess. She saw the imprint and immediately felt a sense of humiliation. In her family, she was the pearl in the palm and was protected, and in the fairy palace, she was the third-in-line successor and had a respected position. She even started to think, why did Tang Tian not warn her? Or did he also wish for her father to become a rebel? Which powerhouse did he represent? Regardless of his intelligence, he was extremely scary. Only in a desperate situation could she be truly clear-headed. Angelina never thought that the sentence she was waiting for would be that, causing her to be dumbstruck. Angelina did not make a sound and only extended out her arm, pointing in a direction. That's right, the master was most likely killed. And if it was a trap, Qiu Shan would definitely blame the master's death on her father. She no longer had any thoughts of wishful thinking. The cruelty of the truth was beyond her imagination. Only now did she realize that the tactics she thought she was proficient in were really laughable. Angelina revealed a look of hesitation. She would not be repelled by the power of the fairy hoop, but the mysterious man would. The fairy hoop was shrouded in a layer of faint purple mist, the mist of Roland. He grabbed Angelina's wrist and extended it towards the fairy hoop in the purple mist. This bastard actually left a mark on my body. I need a maid. From the hurried footsteps of the guards, it could be seen that the battle on Noel's side was not over yet. Angelina turned around in a daze, her mind blank. She was alone, and the things that had happened in the past few days had left her in a constant state of panic. Tang Tian's strength and wisdom gave her a sense of security. However, she also knew that this mysterious man was not a good person. However, this was the best time to get his hands on the fairy hoop. The power enveloping the fairy palace had yet to disappear, which meant that the fairy hoop was still there. And now, they were still entangled with Noel. As long as they arrived before them, their chances of success were very high. Of course, the fairy hoop's power enveloped the entire palace, so there were no blind spots. Father and his plateau army would be branded as traitors. The third successor of Androna Constellation to be my maid. Oh, that's not a bad idea. Tang Tian muttered. The idea was just a spur-of-the-moment idea, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was necessary. His mind was moving quickly. Angelina's identity as the successor, if handled properly, should be able to display a good effect. As for Ta Dun's army, Tang Tian had already thought of a way out for them. Orion Constellation had a large number of fringe areas, and it was more than enough to support an army. Asda is dead. Tang Tian did not hesitate. He picked up Angelina and placed her on his back and wrapped Angelina's legs around his waist. The black flames on his body disappeared, and the black flames on his face also disappeared, leaving behind a thin layer of black membrane. Turn around, Tang Tian ordered coldly. I truly need such a maid. But to Angelina, who had obtained the recognition of the fairy hoop, the power of the fairy hoop would not repel her. All the hidden passageways would often become the secret for them to sneak out and play. And everyone's secret passageway was different. Unless it was a good friend, no one would ever share it. Tang Tian could not help but admire Qiu Shan. To actually be able to use such an ingenious method to control the Saint Treasure. The mist of Roland was the blood of the 100 transformation caterpillar. It could transform into all sorts of disguises. Qiu Shan's brilliance was that he did not use the mist of Roland to imitate Asda's appearance, but her aura. The cold reply with a tinge of ridicule was like a sharp arrow that smashed Angelina's heart into pieces. The cold sword tip left a black cross imprint on her left, but near her waist. Angelina was still immature, but Tang Tian felt that she could be groomed. From today onwards, Angelina is no longer a little girl. Behind the mask, Tang Tian's eyes flashed a look of admiration. Personally witnessing the transformation of a young lady seems like my eyesight is not bad, but to this extent is far from enough. But what was unexpected was that no one was guarding such an important place. Tang Tian did not plan to speak, and only quietly watched her. His heart was as cold as ice, without any change in expression. It was originally a part of his plan. If Angelina and the rest had many ways to retreat, why would she cooperate with him? What I need to pay, Angelina said coldly. Such an unfathomable method even made Tang Tian secretly admire her. Seems like Qiu Shan definitely has a powerful blood meridians specialist under him. She lost control of her state of mind, and tears flowed down. She forced herself to calm down. You spent so much effort just to do a good deed? Unless Tang Tian's gaze did not stop on the corpse upon entering. His gaze landed on the fairy hoop beside the throne. After Angelina's tears flowed out, her mood was not as bad. She did not make a sound and ran towards a corner of the outer wall of the fairy palace. The fairy palace had been expanded for generations, and the previous structures were not torn down. so there were many blind spots. Catch it. The speed of the scenery around her was so fast that she could not catch it with her naked eyes. She had no choice but to focus to ensure that she was not heading in the wrong direction. What made her even more shocked was that he seemed to be able to predict danger and avoided the guards of the palace many times. The power of the void dark flames would cause an intense reaction from the fairy hoop, and in a place like the fairy palace, where the power of Andromeda constellation was the most concentrated, other powers would be repelled and suppressed. Tang Tian was not afraid of its suppression, but if the reaction was too big, it would attract the enemy over. The third crucial point was more important than the other two combined. Orion constellation was one of the 10 equatorial palace halls, and other than a few extremely remote constellations, the majority of the 10 equatorial palace halls would not be able to escape from the war in Heaven's Road. With the strength of the 12 ecliptic palaces, for a long time, the equatorial palace hall constellations would most likely be the main battlefield of the war. The mist of Roland that imitated Asda's aura had successfully deceived the fairy hoop. He had slept for a long time and was awake for a short period of time, and he did not want to affect the other him. Because of that, what he could do was rather limited. And if he had an outstanding female servant, he only needed to prepare a plan in advance, and when he was asleep, he would hand over the responsibility to the female servant. That way, he could ensure that the plan would not be interrupted while he was asleep. Very quickly, Angelina's face revealed a shocked expression. It was the first time she experienced Tang Tian's true speed. As for loyalty, the imprint just now was not just for show. As for Angelina's thoughts, he did not care and did not need to care. Not a single servant of the master could escape. Tang Tian bent over, carrying Angelina on his back. He slipped in through the small door. Angelina's face immediately turned pale white. In that moment, she felt as though she was stripped clean. All her pride and self-respect was completely shattered, and she was so desperate that she almost collapsed. But she did not collapse. She knew, regardless of whether it was her or her father, their current situation was already at the edge of a cliff. If they were not careful, they would be smashed into pieces and be consigned to eternal damnation. What else do you have? If Angelina's identity as the third successor was the first crucial point, then Ta Dun's Plateau Army was the second, and the St. Treasure Fairy Hoop was the third. Schwa. And when these three crucial points were combined, it was enough to change Andromeda constellation's appearance. Even if Ta Dun was framed as a traitor, even if he was the real traitor, it was enough for them to enter the fairy palace. Although she knew that the other party did not have any obligations, but her heart was still cold, she was still too naive. At that time, maybe this nail could be of some use. Wear it. Tang Tian threw a shirt to her. She was so shocked that she almost screamed and subconsciously extended her hand to touch it. It was still as smooth as before without any scars. That was extremely fast. She pursed her lips and thought about some things. If it was Qiu Shan's plan, then he would definitely place the blame on her father. She thought about what the mysterious man had said. Under Angelina's guidance, the two of them quickly arrived at Asda's sleeping quarters. Angelina subconsciously grabbed onto the fairy hoop. Angelina immediately saw Asda and Lan Di. Lan Di was the first successor and was the most doted on by Asda, and usually followed by the master's side. Lan Di's temperament was exactly the same as the master, extremely warm and kind, and had an extremely good relationship with Angelina. Just as Angelina was surprised, Tang Tian did not hesitate and directly barged into the sleeping quarters. Who are you? Angelina's voice was cold. Tang Tian did not care about Angelina's thoughts. The servant's thoughts made him recall many things. In many aristocratic families, the young master's female servants would usually hold many positions. They had outstanding talent and could help the young master handle all sorts of matters. Chapter 364. ZZZ. The gold light was like a flame burning the black cross imprint on Angelina's buttocks, but the black cross imprint was not damaged at all. Everyone use your star treasures. I don't believe we can't break it open. Tang Tian's emotionless voice was cold and murderous. His rapier was raised. The dense black aura at the tip of the sword released a terrifying, destructive aura. Bang, bang, bang. The dense and solid gold light converged in front of Angelina. 5 silver star treasures. One of them was the control center. Which one was it? With such a huge commotion, the entire Andromeda constellation knew that they were snatching the Saint treasure. Tang Tian placed Angelina down. He took a deep breath. The most dangerous moment had arrived. Did I miss something? Her mind was in a daze. Suddenly, she felt an incomparable fear, a power that even the fairy hoop feared. What was it? An astonishing explosion lit up above the two of them. The terrifying energy undulation caused them to suffocate. Tang Tian groaned. It was as though he had suffered a heavy punch. The terrifying shockwave directly smashed the two of them into the underground river. The heart-palpitating sound of the wall cracking came out. Angelina opened her eyes. Her golden pupils were cold and dazzling. Her entire body was releasing a gold light, her golden hair fluttering, her expression cold, like a goddess of war. Tang Tian was not anxious. The Constellation Master's palace was definitely a tortoise shell. But he could still sense that among the people, there were a few powerful people. After thinking for a while, Tang Tian understood. At such a crucial moment, who would dare to hide? While Tang Tian was thinking, bang, the door shook. Angelina could feel the sorrow of the fairy hoop. It could no longer feel as does she. Not knowing why, the soft cord in her heart was plucked, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Offending the superior? Was he talking about her? Or the fairy hoop? Ka. The door of the palace closed with a loud bang. The ground shook, the glass in the palace all shattered. The candlesticks all fell from the table. Cracks finally appeared in the palace. The silver umbrella and the ring shattered at the same time, but Tang Tian remained indifferent. His gaze was locked onto Angelina. The golden light released by the fairy hoop had already stabilized. Mechanisms were something that only the rich could play with. And generally speaking, as long as you had money, you could always buy a good mechanism. Andromeda Constellation's businesses were flourishing. How could Asda lack money? The door was very thick. Tang Tian tried to push it with brute force, but it didn't budge at all. Fortunately, there was a mechanism here. He found it after a while and closed the door. She had come into contact with the fairy hoop once, when she was chosen as the successor. The most important requirement to become a successor was not how outstanding one's talent was, but rather not being rejected by the fairy hoop. At that time, she had only touched the fairy hoop for a short while. From then on, she had never touched the fairy hoop again. No one escaped from the fairy palace. The fairy hoop that Angelina had just grabbed on has suddenly released a burst of light aura, as though it had awoken from a deep slumber. The fairy hoop's entire body was golden in color, as if it was weaved from thin golden vines. The 13 leaves were tightly attached to the body of the hoop. It was as though she was struck by an iron wall. Her throat tasted sweet, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. In the moment of danger, she relaxed her body, following the force. Like a withered leaf, she was pushed 20 li away by the shock wave and landed on a small hill. There was actually nothing at the bottom of the tunnel. Very quickly, Tang Tian found the mechanisms. The layout of such a palace was usually more or less the same. Angelina was being acknowledged by the fairy hoop. The other people all took out their star treasures, only to see countless light auras attacking the palace like a torrential storm. Don't let go. The big door shattered, but it was too late. If Angelina was awake, she would have recognized that it was the great clan elder's voice. The usually amiable great clan elder was currently flustered and exasperated. A dense golden halo of light was released from the fairy hoop in Angelina's hand. Like a dazzling golden light, it swept across the entire fairy palace. Because what awaited him was a huge battle. I should be able to hold on for 10 minutes. It was the first time Tang Tian was surprised. The power of the explosion was much stronger than what he had expected. 6 silver star treasures were scattered all around the palace for a 200 m radius. And inside the palace, 5 star treasures lit up: a painting, a sword, a ring, an umbrella, and a wooden chest. Following that, he appeared like a ghost under the painting. Unknowingly, there was an entrance to the underground tunnel. Tang Tian did not even look. He flipped his slender rapier. A black sword aura struck the sword floating in the air. In her heart, the fairy hoop's position was high and unattainable. It was the strongest star treasure in the world. The power of martial artists in front of it was extremely weak. Its power was enough to change the entire Andromeda constellation. The cold voice caused Angelina to wake up. She grabbed onto the fairy hoop tightly, not daring to let go. She was panicking. Oh God, there was actually a day where I had to snatch Saint treasures. She stared blankly at Tang Tian, forgetting that the clothes on her body had already been burnt to ashes. He was curious. He had just detonated all the star treasures in the palace. The power would definitely be strong, but it was definitely not to such an extent. But it actually retreated. Her face was filled with shock. The golden light that burned the black cross receded like a tide, and the beautiful buttocks retreated from the golden light. The black cross imprint was extremely clear, followed by Angelina's perfect and flawless body. But the experiences in this period of time had made Angelina mature a lot. Although she was panicking, but she knew that there was no point in retreating. She gathered her courage. Not only did she grab onto the fairy hoop, her other hand also extended towards the fairy hoop, holding it with both hands. The fairy palace was built by the generations of constellation masters of Andromeda constellation, and every generation's palace was completely preserved. Every palace's layout was perfectly preserved, other than the generations of constellation masters. No one knew about it. In the blink of an eye, the palace had become an extremely sturdy fortress. Her face was pale as she looked at the distant Andromeda city. Such a fast speed had exceeded Tang Tian's estimation. It was a star treasure. Tang Tian looked at Angelina, who was wrapped in the golden light. It would not end anytime soon. He started a search inside the palace. Normally, the palace was the last fortress of the Constellation Master, and thus the majority of the Constellation Masters would make it extremely sturdy. The impact of the explosion swept across the entire Andromeda City. The walls of the Andromeda City that had never experienced the flames of war before crumbled. The luxurious and exquisite restaurants and pavilions were like paper, crumbling. Let me do it. Because of the decline of mechanical techniques, these mechanisms would usually rely on other powers, like star treasures. Tang Tian's move had completely ignited the entire fairy palace. She initially wanted to take the chance to teach Tang Tian a lesson. She did not hate Tang Tian at all. Without Tang Tian, she would have already landed in Bafu's hands, living a life worse than death. But this brat made people angry and unhappy. If she could teach him a lesson, that would be the best. Angelina, who had finally obtained the recognition of the fairy hoop, felt that her decision would definitely succeed. Tang Tian secretly shook his head. He was not satisfied with his own servant. Her heart was still kind. Tang Tian looked at Angelina again. The dense golden light was flickering like it was breathing. The calm Tang Tian could not help but be happy. He dared to confirm. The entire fairy palace was like a tide rushing over. The entire Andromeda City had even more people rushing over. But he had to hold on for at least 10 minutes, for the Saint Treasure to recognize a new master was not that fast. He turned his head and looked at Angelina. Angelina's entire body was wrapped in dense golden light, as though it was suddenly frozen. Time passed slowly. Without any warning, Tang Tian appeared beside Angelina and picked up the frightened Angelina. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. This meant that the fairy hoop was extremely close to Angelina and was naturally compatible. If not, it would not be so fast. In his eyes, kindness was a weakness, and in an intense battle, the enemy would always make use of it. But thinking about his other self, Tang Tian was helpless and decided not to think about it. Pa pa pa. That was the fairy hoop. Facing his threats, the fairy hoop actually retreated. Tang Tian quickly closed all the windows. The windows in Asda's palace were specially made. It was equivalent to the fairy palace's last line of defense. Upon closing, it would be able to defend against high-intensity attacks. and it was impossible to open it from the outside. Under the fluttering golden hair, the stern and beautiful face, the gaze that was like a sword, stared intently at Tang Tian. Mingyu, who was swimming in the lake, watched in shock as the ball of light from the explosion of the fairy palace entered the lake, causing half of the fairy lake to evaporate. When the shock wave reached her side, she instinctively activated her body technique and retreated backwards. It was Ba Fu's voice, rumbling even louder than before. The big door shook, and countless of dust fell from the roof, but the big door still did not have any signs of opening. With the fairy palace as the center, in a circumference of 20 li, there was only a gigantic black pit. Tang Tian hugged Angelina and fell down. Offending your superiors, kill without mercy. Blast the door open. Even the surface of the river was pressured to the point that the bottom of the river could be seen. The power was unimaginable. And after being chosen as the successor, there were internal struggles between the successors, and the fairy hoop seemed to have become their biggest wish in one night. Although she had dreamt of herself grabbing the fairy hoop countless of times, but when it really happened, she still felt fear. In her heart, the fairy hoop was sacred and inviolable, but she actually dared to snatch it. Bang! Over 100 silver treasures exploded at the same time. The power produced was unimaginable. The dazzling ball of light enveloped the entire fairy palace. It could be seen from afar. Following that, the terrifying ball of light was like an inflated balloon, spreading out in all directions at an astonishing speed, and wherever it went, everything turned into nothingness. He was like a burst of smoke, sweeping past the windows, his rapier moving extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, all the windows were locked. The fairy hoop on Angelina's wrist wailed. Some even had mechanisms. Chapter 365. The Honorable Martial Alliance had dominated Heaven's Road for too long, and the higher-ups all had the mentality of underestimating the enemy. In their eyes, the newly established Leo constellation had a shallow foundation and no history to speak of. The development of Leo constellation was very low, and they were unable to withstand long periods of war, and the Honorable Martial Alliance's wealth was something no one in Heaven's Road could compare to. As long as the war entered a stalemate, Leo constellation would quickly run out of resources. After 14 years of war, one planet after another, they opened up the current Leo constellation. After 14 years of construction of the Lionheart Palace, it welcomed its master's first visit. The 12 ecliptic palaces, some rose and fell, but all of them were built on the foundations of the previous generation. Only Leo constellation completely abandoned the tradition and was created by Lei Ang's own will. Thinking about the people outside, they were most likely turned into ashes, and no one could survive the explosion. Tang Tian immediately felt that the explanation was very detailed. Maybe there were people who could survive, but definitely not these people. Only martial artists of the Sacred Saint Domain and above could survive the explosion. Such a hero was revered and worshipped by the martial artists under the heavens, and countless of martial artists came from all corners of the world to pledge their loyalty to this hero. The combination of the three was his greatest confidence in controlling Andromeda constellation. Ba Fu was greedy and lustful. The great clan elder was passionate about power, and Kai Lin was already in his pocket, becoming one of his women. They all had their weaknesses, but if they worked together, they would be able to support each other. In the close to 1,000 years, no one had ever achieved such a feat. Xioshan's face turned green. The accident he did not want to see the most actually happened. A woman like Mingyu was not a little girl who only knew how to flirt, and being obsessed would not make her see you in a new light. Xioshan's mood was extremely good. The matter of Andromeda constellation was settled. Because the opponent was Lion King Leong, it was as though the carriage had suddenly entered a storm, like a withered leaf flying. Everyone in the carriage felt the sky shaking. They did not dare fly out of the carriage, and could only instigate true power with all their might, and firmly stay in the carriage. The softness in his hands made him subconsciously pinch them. The explosion forced him to change his plans, and the Plateau army in Ta Dun's hands had become the strongest power in the entire Andromeda constellation. Adding Angelina, who had obtained the fairy hoop, regardless if it was in name or strength, it was enough to take over. The beauty in his arms had already woken up. Tang Tian knew that she was pretending to be unconscious. However, he didn't care. His mind was completely focused on the fledgling plan in his mind. His eyes shone with a cold light. Even the bone-chilling underground river, that kind of light made people feel that it was even colder than the river water. Tang Tian's train of thought was interrupted, and he stopped playing with his hands. He raised his head, and his cold eyes looked at the sky through the water. There was too little room for him to do anything. This meant that the resistance she faced was greatly reduced. That was Fairy City. That fellow liked Chie Shangwan, but he didn't like her too much. She was such a strong and intelligent woman. All right, he couldn't understand the feelings of childhood sweethearts. He didn't think too much about love. He felt that the beauty in his arms was beautiful, and if the timing was right, he would naturally enjoy it. But now, he was not in the mood to do so. Everyone in the carriage looked at each other, all of them revealing looks of shock. Other than Angelina's father and the commander of the Plateau army, he knew nothing about Ta Dun. The Lion King army continued to grow and evolved into the current 6 great armies of Leo constellation. Every commander of the 6 great armies was a Saint Domain. Leo constellation had the most famous military general academy and continuously provided them with military generals. Qiushan laughed happily. 6th brother Yi was such a boorish fellow. How could he enter her eyes? The reason why he spent so much effort was because of Andromeda constellation's value. Andromeda constellation's value was underestimated. It could help Qiushan in many ways, and money was one of them. The prosperous and affluent Andromeda constellation would become his money bag. Regardless of when, money would always be the strongest power. After flying for a while, Qiushan suddenly shouted, "Be careful!" He wantonly played with the beautiful buttocks in his hands, his mind still thinking calmly. Tang Tian licked his lips. 15 days of time was still too short. The shock wave was already so terrifying. How powerful would the explosion be? That was an argument that no one could refute. Only a strong man could subdue her. Zhou Ning and the rest were suspicious, but immediately agreed. Who? Suddenly, the river in front of them became much brighter. Suddenly, Tang Tian felt a gaze on him. He turned his head, and a cold light flashed past his eyes. That was also the reason why he left in such a hurry. His heart was filled with excitement. Once the war started, Andromeda constellation's strategic value would increase even more, and his position in the Marshall Group would also rise. On the shore, a snow-white figure looked at them from afar. Everyone seemed to have awoken from a dream, and immediately turned the carriage, flying at full speed towards Fairy City. Qiushan's face changed, his heart sank, and he ordered, "Turn back." They could not imagine what kind of explosion would create such a terrifying shock wave. Although Leo constellation was newly established and had a shallow foundation, but because it was newly established from top to bottom, all of them were filled with ambition and filled with a desire to expand. The explosion just now had practically wiped out all of the higher-ups of Andromeda constellation. Andromeda constellation's power would decline for a very long period of time. But to Angelina, it was the best opportunity. When the light aura dissipated, everyone in the carriage turned their heads at the same time, their faces filled with shock. Suddenly, a dazzling light aura suddenly lit up behind them. The dazzling light aura lit up the entire place, and nothing could be seen in the vast expanse of white. Qiushan's opposition was not scary. If Qiushan brazenly targeted Angelina, it would only incite the resentment of the citizens of Andromeda constellation and would instead be beneficial to Angelina. Only the great clan elder, Kai Lin, Ba Fu, and the other local powerhouses would cause Andromeda constellation to descend into chaos and civil war. Qiushan believed that day would come very soon. It could be said that as long as there were no accidents, the 3 of them would be able to control Andromeda constellation's politics for over 10 years. On such a huge matter, Qiu did not have any authority to speak, so he could only shut his mouth. Qiu smile froze on his face. Do not spread this matter. He suddenly ordered Zhou Ning and the rest. Qiu was astute and far-sighted. There was no doubt about the importance of Andromeda constellation, but it was not the best time to reveal it. The war had just started, and many of the clan elders in the martial group looked down on Leo constellation, as they were obviously not prepared for the difficulty of the war. To mention it at such a time, not only would it not attract the attention of the higher-ups, it would easily leak out. Furthermore, he had just received news that Leo constellation and the Honorable Martial Alliance had started a war. Tang Tian was extremely satisfied with the result. His injuries had caused his thoughts to not be as meticulous as usual. When the Lionheart Palace was sealed, he was out fighting. Only when the war was in a stalemate would the importance of the hidden chess piece in his hands be revealed. Tang Tian did not expect that it would cause such a shocking explosion. The crux of the problem was Ta Dun. Although he was slightly moved by the fairy hoop, but compared to Andromeda constellation's value, it was lacking. Without Lan Di and Angelina, Kai Lin was the rightful new constellation master. Kai Lin, the great clan elder, Ba Fu, this was the perfect combination that he had meticulously created, and no one in Andromeda constellation could fight against such a powerful trio. What are you all standing there for? Go back. Qiu Shan's angry roar exploded in everyone's ears, causing them to wake up from their daze, and anxiously started up the carriage again. They could only wait and see. Thinking about Leo constellation, Qiu Shan's heart became heavy. But luckily Andromeda constellation was in his hands, and he finally had a good card. They were already outside. In the night, outside of the chaotic and noisy fairy city, a black figure slowly rose from the surface of the fairy lake. He squinted his eyes. Hugging Angelina, he slowly floated up. On the other hand, the Honorable Martial Alliance had dominated Heaven's Road for a long time. They were known to have experienced battles, but compared to the Leo constellation, all of them had killed their way out from mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The disparity was huge. After half a minute, the carriage gradually slowed down, and unknowingly, they were pushed out. A few Li Qiu could not refute, but he believed that it would not be so easy. He was different from the declining Aries constellation. This man, with an unyielding character, used his own strength to create the Lion King army that could shake the world. Although he had inherited the inheritance of the ancient Leo constellation, but he did not go to the ancient Leo constellation, but walked on an even more difficult path. He led the Lion King army, and without any supplies, brazenly entered the nameless constellation that was filled with dangerous energy flows, and forcefully opened up the current Leo constellation. In Mingyu, that was an unexpected joy. He did not hide anything in front of Mingyu. Mingyu was an ambitious woman. She was more scheming and shrewd than anyone else, and in the current era, it was a quality that a leader had to possess. He could see the admiration in Mingyu's eyes, but he did not pester her. Who? Who did it? Tang Tian relaxed his state of mind. Being injured had affected his state of mind greatly. Tang Tian, who was hugging Angelina, coincidentally grabbed onto Angelina's buttocks. Oh, it feels good. Lion King Leong was fully deserving of his title as the strongest hero of this era. As long as one had done a little research on Leong, they would know how terrifying this Lion King was when he was at his peak. Bang! The underground river water was bone-chilling. Tang Tian spat out blood. Angelina, who was in his embrace, fainted. The power of the explosion was too strong. Tang Tian felt as though he was struck by a wild beast. All the bones in his body felt like they were going to fall apart. Although Angelina had the protection of the fairy hoop, she was still too weak and fainted from the impact. Not good. The terrifying ripple in the air expanded at an astonishing speed in front of everyone's eyes. The shockwave was like a hurricane sweeping out. The flow of the underground river was extremely rapid. Tang Tian relaxed his body, allowing the river to bring them forward. Chapter 366. Wrong. Her flawless white, slender fingers had a glossy luster that caused people's hearts to palpitate. When he saw her, he acted as though there was no one else around, and placed the beauty in his embrace down, and took out a piece of clothing to drape over the perfect body. The two of them swayed and separated like springs. Tang Tian did not care about her, and placed Angelina on his back again, took out a rope, and carefully tied her up. If it was useful, it would not be abandoned. Without thinking, Tang Tian switched his sword to his left hand, his right hand's 5 fingers like a pipa. 5 extremely sharp sword auras struck Ming Yu's palm sword. At the same time, his upper body did not move an inch. His left leg swung back like a pendulum. A sharp sword aura flew out from his left leg, accurately striking the sword aura that Ming Yu's soul had released. Her eyes blurred, and his figure appeared in front of her like a ghost. He had the qualifications to be her target to learn from. Saint Treasure, Fairy Hoop. Especially when he was more beautiful than her, his temperament was cold, pure, and clean, and she, for some reason, the current Xioshan, made her feel that his bearing was slightly lacking. Ming Yu said, "Fairy Lake." Angelina secretly decided. Ming Yu's gaze landed on the figure that was slowly rising from the water. Ming Yu then realized she had fallen into his trap. For a very long time, this cold and powerful man would always be shrouding her life. In a short period of time, she would not be able to get rid of this shadow, and if he failed, her situation would be even worse. Her master was seriously tying her on his back. After 2 days of interaction, Angelina had a certain understanding of her mysterious master's temper. He would definitely not do meaningless things. He had spent a long time tying her tightly on his back, so tightly that she could not breathe. Ming Yu's heart suddenly surged with a strong sense of danger. In a moment of desperation, her beautiful eyes turned frosty, and her left palm extended out in front of her face. "The last time you borrowed my carriage to enter the city, we did not have the chance to meet, but today we need to have a good talk." Ming Yu's eyes were as bright as the stars. The biting cold fighting intent made her, who was dressed in white like snow, look like a spotless sword. "Brother Qi," she calmly greeted. A trace of admiration flashed in her eyes. To be able to cultivate the 15 pipa swords to such an extent, the other party's talent in the sword was truly astonishing. Tightly sticking to his back, that was as hard as steel, Angelina's face changed. No one knew what she was thinking. What was even more terrifying was that the torrential attacks were all concentrated in the narrow space of Ming Yu's sword. "No matter what, you can't panic. Calm down, you must calm down." Angelina knew that it wasn't because her master liked her, but because she was useful to him. If she was of no use to him, he would abandon her without hesitation. She didn't chase after him. Instead, she quietly watched as Tang Tian fell into the lake. She didn't hide the admiration in her eyes. This was the first time she had suffered a loss since her debut. The other party's origins were thought-provoking. The sword domain was extremely mysterious, and very few people knew about it. Generations of disciples would never reveal their true identities when they traveled. Only Qiu Shan, a disciple from a first-rate aristocratic family in Heaven's Road, would know about it. Tang Tian's thrust was extremely powerful. The rapier instantly bent to the extreme, causing people to suspect if it would break. The sharp rapier pierced into Ming Yu's sword body. Ming Yu's palms heated up, and both her legs sank into the ground. Ming Yu was surprised. Such a powerful force. Angelina wanted to find a hole and hide in it. 15 pipa swords, created 200 years ago by the pipa sword Saint Shang Wan Ting, originated from the pipa technique. Shang Wan Ting was a singer and was proficient in the pipa. Later on, he was taught sword techniques by an expert and became a saint at the age of 47. He had not even walked out of Andromeda constellation when the cooked duck flew away. The opponent's sword was not a sneak attack, but an attempt to borrow strength. The sound was like a bell, resonating far and wide. It was extremely beautiful, but it was also extremely sharp. A man shrouded in darkness was holding a naked, beautiful woman in his arms. This kind of charming scene was filled with a cold and sharp taste. "Sister Ming, were you fighting with someone just now?" Qiu Shan asked anxiously. He had heard the movement of Ming Yu's finger and followed the sound. No one in Andromeda constellation had the qualifications to make Mingyu fight, except for the mysterious swordsman. Qiu-Shan's face twisted. Thinking about the past few days of being by Qiu-Shan's side, the naked lady's name immediately surfaced in her mind. Angelina, the third successor of Andromeda constellation. If I find you, I will definitely grind your bones to dust. Mingyu's expression turned cold. The sword in her hand suddenly moved horizontally in front of her. Taking advantage of her shock, Tang Tian suddenly launched a sneak attack. Thank you, Sister Ming. With that, Qiu-Shan and the rest soared into the sky. A guard beside Qiu-Shan shot out a ray of red light from his eyes, the red light continuously sweeping across the lake. He had trained in our related martial techniques, and his level was not low. The group of people circled around the fairy lake, but did not discover anything. Her jade-like fingers closed, her left palm like a sword. In the blink of an eye, it pierced towards Tang Tian's face. At the same time, a cold sword aura quietly flew towards Tang Tian's lower abdomen. Suddenly, the sound of air breaking broke her train of thought. It was Qiu-Shan and the rest who had returned. Qiu-Shan's face was ashen. Obviously his mood was extremely bad. Seeing his face, adding the explosion of the fairy palace, Mingyu's heart became clear. Mingyu watched with interest. The girl's bashfulness and panic, and the man's cold and calm, formed a strong contrast. The cold and sharp black and white scene in front of her suddenly seemed to have a few more colors and became lively. After careful observation, she very quickly discovered many things. Behind the two of them was the blazing fairy city. Without question, the source of the explosion was the two people in front of her. No, it was this man. Mingyu could feel, through the layer of black mist, a pair of eyes staring at her. She suddenly felt something was wrong. The extremely bent sword body suddenly retracted, and Tang Tian, who was rushing in front of her, suddenly disappeared. Tang Tian slowly spat out the 4 words. Angelina's gaze immediately became cold. A blurry black aura suddenly enlarged in front of her. They did not come with good intentions. The sword body trembled. The extremely dense sword rain was actually forcefully swept away. Mingyu's gaze landed on Angelina's wrist. A cold glint flashed past her eyes, her expression cold. The two of you truly have good methods obtaining the saint treasure. Just that, to start such a massacre, it is truly against the heavens. She had never seen Mingyu before, but from the start, the other party was extremely strong. Angelina calmed down. Her heart suddenly moved and secretly observed Tang Tian's reaction. In her heart, this mysterious master of hers was the strongest and coldest person she had ever met. Ding, ding, ding. That was the first thing Angelina learned. Dang. Master was not affected by the opponent's aura at all. Thinking about her previous panic and shyness, Angelina felt ashamed. Obviously, Master only thought that the following battle would be extremely intense, and thus specially did that. Suddenly, the sword in Mingyu's hand was coiled by a black steel rope. It was actually the rapier in Tang Tian's hand. Tang Tian took advantage of the situation. His entire being became a black shadow, and with a whoosh, he entered Mingyu's embrace. She quietly stood at the lakeside, her mind recalling the battle. But one day, I will be able to break free from the devil's clutches. Qiu-Shan's face twitched, the sinister look in his eyes faintly revealed. He controlled himself. I wonder where they escaped to? Ding. Mingyu's expression was strange. She stared intently at Tang Tian. 15 Peepa swords. The opponent was actually able to see through it. Yes, a mysterious swordsman. Angelina is in his hands. Mingyu did not hide anything, and spoke the truth. Although she could not see Tang Tian's face clearly, but she was sure Tang Tian was definitely a man. The fairy lake's waters were crisscrossed with underground rivers, and the underwater tributaries were extremely complicated. Tang Tian's extremely sharp rapier struck the jade palm, releasing a clear and crisp sound, but was unable to advance an inch. Mingyu did not panic at all. The airflow that Tang Tian brought along caused her long hair to fly up high. Her flawless and beautiful face flashed with a dazzling luster. Tang Tian was unable to dodge. If he dodged, Angelina, who was on his back, would be pierced. In the next moment, he appeared above the lake out of thin air. The slender rapier in Tang Tian's hands was like a black rainstorm. If Ling Su was here, he would definitely be dumbstruck. The sword rain that Tang Tian released was actually even more terrifying than his pointed sea spears. Until Ming Yu's words caused her to immediately wake up. She was not stupid at all. It was just that she had been pampered since young. With Londi around, the competition between the other successors had always been maintained at a low level. Facing such a huge change, she always felt at a loss. Although she tried her best to become more powerful, but the road to growth was not that short. Just at this time, Tang Tian suddenly raised his head. His face was shrouded in a black mist and could not be seen clearly, but the eyes behind the black mist were like two unfathomably deep black pools. If she did not see it with her own eyes, she would never have imagined that a man would actually learn a lady's sword technique. What made her even more surprised was the lady's sword technique in his hands did not have the slightest bit of feminine aura, but became gentle and sharp. From start to finish, he did not look at Mingyu, nor did he ask Angelina anything. Ding! Mingyu's expression was cold. Her left palm tapped and suddenly flicked the sword body. Mingyu's face finally changed. In such a short period of contact, the opponent was actually able to see through her background. Her mind was shaken. Qiu Shan's anger finally reached its peak. He roared, "Seal all the star doors in Andromeda constellation. Investigate. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you have to find out." Angelina laid on Tang Tian's back. Both of them were drenched. Tang Tian's back was not considered broad, but his muscles were as hard as rocks, sticking closely to her body. Her face was flushed red, as though it was about to bleed. She never thought that there would be people on the shore. Sword domain, sword body. Ming Yu's expression was strange. Of course there was a reason. The 15 Pipa swords did not refer to the 15 forms, but because Shang Wanning only started learning the Pipa at the age of 15. The sword technique was created by a sword saint, and was naturally extremely powerful, but the sword technique was only suitable for females to learn. Chapter 367. Zhou Ning hesitated for a moment, and could only tell the truth. We are in one-way contact with the Great Elder, Karen, and Bafu. Right now, we have no local allies, no eyes and ears. Qiu Shan's heart sunk, but he did not panic, since he was discovered. Then he had to attack. Was it fate? The people he brought were all elites of the Honorable Martial Alliance. Such guards might be difficult for ordinary martial artists, but for them, it was not a problem at all. Zhou Ning's pupils suddenly shrank. In order to change the passive situation, Martial Group would definitely sacrifice himself, and what awaited him would definitely be an extremely severe punishment. Qiu Shan's face was pale white. His entire body felt as though he had fallen into an ice house. He had been tricked. She no longer had the courage to fight him. The entire Fairy City, no, the entire upper echelon of Fairy City was completely erased, and everything that happened at that time was completely erased. This abnormal phenomenon made everyone even more excited. Without a doubt, the possibility of Angelina hiding here was extremely high. He was the 10th Elder. Normally, he didn't manage anything and preferred peace and quiet, so he was able to escape this disaster. However, he had been an elder for the longest time, watching Asda grow up. His feelings for Asda were extremely deep, his heart feeling like it was being twisted. The Rose House was instantly reduced to dust. Another old general donned in armor. His hair was as white as snow, but he was not angry. He was the previous commander of the Plateau Army. He said sternly, "Although my Andromeda constellation is small, but we cannot allow people to trample on us. From today onwards, my Fairy City and the Honorable Martial Alliance are irreconcilable. Kill." Qiu Shan gestured to Zhou Ning. Qiu Shan took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. There was no point in being angry at this time. He said in a low voice, "Did you find out who spread it?" And his so-called truth would be like the wind, spreading throughout the entire northern sky's 19 continents. causing many of the smaller constellations to be united against a common enemy. Leo constellation would spread it wantonly, using it to smear the name of the Honorable Martial Alliance. There is an expert behind Angelina. Xiao had already calmed down. It is that mysterious swordsman. Angelina must have already returned to the Rose Manor. If not, there would not be such rumors. We only have one path, to kill Angelina and take back the fairy hoop. Since Andromeda constellation is already in chaos, then we will make it even more chaotic. The other people's lights also smashed towards the Rose House at the same time. At this time, someone suggested, then can we rope in some of the local chambers of commerce? I saw that they were very friendly to us that day. Chaos. Unprecedented chaos. Yes, everyone acknowledged the order. The faces of the other people beside Xiao Shan all became extremely ugly, but they could not refute what he said. This kind of rumor was too destructive and too convincing. At such a delicate moment, he had made such a fatal mistake. He knew that he was finished. Xiao Shan laughed. Bullshit. Now the market is saying that this big explosion was caused by us. You made it sound so convincing, saying that we were angry because Asda refused to form an alliance. In the distance, the sounds of killing filled with rage shook the heavens, and they were rapidly approaching. Andrina, who had personally arranged all the steps and witnessed the entire process, was dumbstruck. After a long while, she regained her senses and turned her pale face. If he was alive, he wanted to see him. If dead, he wanted to see his corpse. The curtains of the Rose House were tightly shut. He's finished. He bellowed out, "Kill." He opened his eyes in a daze. All of his confidence, in that moment, disappeared without a trace. From today onwards, Fairy City had changed from a neutral position to an enemy of the Honorable Martial Alliance, and became Leo Constellation's staunchest ally. Let's go to the Rose Manor. No matter how he refuted or argued, no one would believe him. Zhou Ning could feel the killing intent being released by the master above him, and knew that the master was extremely angry. But the matter was too serious. He did not dare to hide anything, and could only bite the bullet and continue. A ruthless look flashed past Xiao Shan's eyes. If not for the fact that they had personally experienced it, they might even believe the rumor. Their previous performance was too realistic. They had just left, and the fairy palace had exploded, and it was not an ordinary explosion. The power of the explosion was so huge that it shocked everyone. The shouts of killing came closer and closer like a tide, for the sake of not raising their guard. The guards were at least 2 kilometers away. A snow-white beam of light landed directly on his face. A group of people quietly snuck into the manor. Thinking about what had happened in the past 2 days, her mind was in a mess. The light beam came from a watchtower that was 400 m away from the Rose Manor. Almost at the same time, pa, beams of light shot down from different heights, shining on them. Kill. But all schemes in the face of absolute power would be completely destroyed. He spat out the 3 words without turning his head. Xiao Shan's pupils constricted. There was no one in the building. That blurry face, that low and hoarse voice, that figure that was enveloped in the darkness at that moment, it was extremely bewitching, so terrifying. Fairy City was currently in a mess. Lacking a reputable person to take charge, it caused the situation to be in chaos. That day, the great clan elder who had plotted for Ta Dun's crime, almost all of the higher-ups and famous people in Fairy City were captured in one fell swoop. In the explosion, no one survived. Bang! Everyone was roused. Very quickly, everyone reached Angelina's residence. It was a small building filled with climbing roses, and the people in the manor called it the Rose Manor. Their previous efforts were not in vain, and were extremely useful. The curtains on the windows were closed tightly, and the room was very dark. Tang Tian sat at the corner of the room. He sat cross-legged with his eyes closed, seemingly in a trance. Not far away, Angelina rested her chin on her arm, looking at Tang Tian, who was in a trance. But the development of the situation made them even more surprised. Tang Tian watched the entire process coldly. They looked at each other in dismay and smiled bitterly. Xiao Shan's face was green. In front of him, Zhou Ning carefully reported. They said it was not an ordinary explosion, such a powerful explosion. Only the Honorable Martial Alliance can do it. Also, the time of the explosion was too coincidental. We had just left. A cold, intense spread from the bottom of his heart. Zhou Ning understood. He was about to take action when a sudden change occurred. Finished, my life is finished. Zhou Ning understood the master's meaning. He shook his head and laughed bitterly. They said, because Master harmed Londi and Kai Lin, the great clan elder in Asda, to protect Angelina, put on a show. Some also said, Asda knew that she would not be able to escape, so she gave the fairy hoop to Angelina and let her escape through the tunnel. There are many versions of this rumor. The fairy hoop is in Angelina's hands. Xiaoshan said, not good, it's an ambush. At that time, they were in a rush to the fairy palace and did not have time to spread the news. Xiaoshan looked at the tightly guarded manor, squinting his eyes. Without question, the rumors in the market were all spread by Angelina, and the one behind the scenes was most likely the mysterious swordsman. They screwed up. The citizens are willing to believe, and the families are also willing to believe. Zhou Ning said, they need someone to control the situation, and Angelina obtaining the fairy hoop is perfectly justifiable. Most importantly, no one believes that Angelina was able to cause such a huge explosion. The security of the Rose Manor was extremely tight. Every 10 steps there was a guard. Every 5 steps there was a sentry. Even a bird could not enter. He had already confirmed the fact that he had killed Asda and confirmed the fact that he had caused the explosion. They had long investigated Angelina and were very clear on the location of the Angelina family. They did not have many people, but at the same time, their target was small. They split up and quietly arrived at Angelina's Rose Manor. His methods were truly too terrifying. In the past 2 days, they had personally witnessed how he could turn his hands into clouds and turn his hands into rain. The entire Fairy City was being toyed with by him. The security in Fairy City was in a mess. All the rich and powerful families were in fear. They did not know what had happened. What made them panic the most was that their patriarchs and clan elders had all disappeared. The various families could only close their doors and guard it tightly, and, on the other hand, send people to search for their patriarchs and clan elders. The other manors were brightly lit, waiting for news through the night, but the Rose Manor was in darkness, with only teams of guards patrolling anxiously. Good. An old and sorrowful voice resonated in the sky. In the distance, on a sentry post, an old man with white hair and beard, with tears streaming down his face, sorrowfully said, Master, your spirit in heaven, are you trying to tell us who is the one who harmed you? Every step he took fell into the opponent's trap. The opponent purposely spread rumors, purposely gave him a clue, and laid a trap. Suddenly, Xiaoshan awoke from his dream. The trap was extremely similar to the one he laid for Ta Dun. He raised his head, his eyes bloodshot, like a wild beast on the verge of death. Another middle-aged man with a square face had his eyes spewing fire and bellowed, Xiaoshan, my Andromeda constellation and the Honorable Martial Alliance, what grudge do we have? You actually dare to be so vicious. You are so vicious. About 3 kilometers away from the Rose Manor was an ordinary building where the servants of the manor lived. A window that had been tightly covered by curtains had been pushed aside by a thin sliver of curtain. This was like yellow mud falling into one's pants. Even if it was not shit, it was shit. Zhou Ning glanced at him and said, at this time, who dares to risk universal condemnation and contact us? No one will believe us. Also, almost all of the big commerce masters in Andromeda City all died in the explosion. Everything was abnormal. This chaos brought a huge obstacle to Xiaoshan and the rest's search. Xiaoshan brought a limited number of people. Facing such an uncontrollable situation, they could not even make a splash. The sword in his hand immediately released a bright light as the sun, slashing towards the Rose Manor, the astonishing sword aura. Rose Manor. This abnormal situation further confirmed Xiaoshan's judgment. More importantly, there were only people entering the manor, no one coming out. It was an extremely abnormal situation. The other family security would also be tight, but there would always be people coming in and out. Because they were all searching for their loved ones who went missing in the explosion, but no one came out from the Rose Manor. He was the son of the biggest commerce master in Andromeda City, and there was still no news of his father. The pain of losing his father was deep into his bones. Chapter 368. Countless of weapons stabbed into Qiu Shan's body. Zhou Ning's words stopped abruptly. His expression froze, his body froze, and looked at Angelina in disbelief. If our dignity needs to be protected with blood, then we will definitely use blood to protect it. If our homeland needs to be protected with our lives, then we will definitely use our lives to protect it. Our hatred will be repaid with blood. I, Angelina, master of Andromeda Constellation, in the name of revenge, declare war on the honorable Martial Alliance. Just when everyone was in a dilemma, a graceful and dignified figure slowly walked out from the darkness. It was Angelina. 15 days was truly too short. Our Andromeda Constellation loves peace and has never fought in other constellations. Our Andromeda Constellation treats people harmoniously, even for such arrogant people. We treat them with all our heart. Evidence? Do we need evidence? Where is this? This is Andromeda Constellation. This is our homeland, the place where our ancestors lived for generations. Our home, a place that we need to use our lives to protect. Our dignity has been trampled. Our leaders have been assassinated. Our clan elders, less than 10% remain. Do we still need evidence? Can evidence bring back the dead? Can evidence revive the fairy palace? Can evidence bring us back to our previous lives? No, nothing at all. We can't go back. We have already been forced to our doorstep. In front of us is the blood of the dead. Behind us is our home, our loved ones. Retreat a step? Where can we retreat to? We have nowhere to retreat to. Nowhere to retreat to. But there was no if. The fairy palace was gone. Londi was gone. So many more were gone. Qiu Shan's face was pale white. This woman is crazy. She is crazy. Ming Yu's cold voice came out from the sky. Tang Tian and Ming Yu faced each other. The moment Angelina went out, Tang Tian had sensed an expert spying on them, but he did not expect it to be the sword domain lady by the lake. Tang Tian was in awe. That sentence was more lethal than anything else. If Qiu Shan had fought to the death just now, then under his rage, he would have died in the chaos, and no one could say anything. But when he threw out that sentence, everyone had no choice but to consider. Angelina's figure was hard to see in the light. Only her firm and unwavering voice resonated in Andromeda Constellation. Qiu Shan was right. That's not a performance, Tang Tian suddenly said. He could hear the grief and indignation in Angelina's heart. The declaration of war had been his idea, but the emotion in Angelina's words was real. Fight! What about the sword domain? Tang Tian said coldly. The sword domain's disciple rule states that those who are not saints are not allowed to leave the domain. Angelina's tears finally flowed uncontrollably. Bastard! Qiu Shan was enraged. He struggled with all his might, but his meridians were all sealed by true power, and he was unable to move. His eyes were about to pop out. I will definitely flatten Andromeda Constellation. Definitely. Who exactly are you? Ming Yu stared at Tang Tian and asked. Shang Wanting does not have any disciples. The killing intent in Tang Tian's heart surged, although he had misgivings about Ming Yu's background. But Ming Yu had pestered him time and time again, causing killing intent to form in his heart. He only felt that he had enough troubles, and did not want to cause more trouble, and not because he was afraid of the sword domain. Seeing Zhou Ning, Angelina's eyes flashed a trace of hatred. The matters of the other day surged into her mind. She raised her head and walked to Zhou Ning. He did not have much time left. He still had many things to arrange, and did not have time to waste on a strange woman. Angelina's direct declaration of war surprised him, but after thinking about it, it was reasonable and was not too far from his plan. Facing the direction where Ming Yu disappeared, he stared for a moment, then retracted his gaze, and once again merged into the darkness. She stared at Qiu Shan, her state of mind extremely calm. We do not need evidence, because from today onwards, Andromeda constellation will declare war on the honorable Martial Alliance. Zoning's face was filled with ridicule as he allowed the guards to tie him up. Qiu should not die here, Mingyu said. Upon saying that, she knew that she had said something wrong. Angelina slowly walked in front of Qiu Shan's handsome face made her feel disgusted. Her peaceful life was broken by him. In just a few days, it felt like a lifetime had passed. Every night, she would be woken up by nightmares, and it was all because of him. As expected, Tang Tian's ridiculing voice came out. That's why he died here. You don't need evidence? And then you guys killed a core disciple of the Honorable Martial Alliance? Zhou Ning laughed out loud, as though he had heard the funniest joke. Such a thing has never happened before, and it will never happen again. Qiu Shan looked at Angelina in disbelief. You're crazy? You're definitely crazy. Do you know what you're doing? Are you trying to destroy Andromeda constellation? You guys are just like ants, and you dare to declare war on the Honorable Martial Alliance? To the weakened Andromeda constellation, stability was more important than anything else, and only stability was in line with the benefits of the various families. Angelina's tears almost flowed out, but she held them back. In the past few days, she had learned that tears were useless. Although she could not be as cold and emotionless as him, but she had improved. The lords hurriedly bowed in greeting. Although they did not know why the fairy hoop was in Angelina's hands. But Angelina was the third successor, and they were familiar with her daily life and knew her character very clearly. No one knew what had happened, but the result to Andromeda constellation was a blessing in disguise. Because with Leo constellation would definitely not sit and watch. Angelina wiped away her tears. She took off the fairy hoop on her wrist and raised it high above her head. The fairy hoop lit up with a dazzling light aura, like the sun, illuminating Fairy City as though it was daytime. The star power of Andromeda constellation slowly revolved, and the undulations of the star power spread to every corner of Andromeda constellation. Mingyu's eyes suddenly lit up with a light aura. You truly are familiar with the sword domain. Which of the 12 ecliptic palaces are you from? Which sword saint disciple are you? If not for him, she would still be living her carefree life. Big Sister Londi had become the constellation master, and everyone would be drinking tea and chatting in the fairy palace's back garden. She had some standards. We will meet again. Everyone was shocked by Angelina's actions. The Angelina in front of them was so unfamiliar. Every single person from Andromeda constellation had tears streaming down their cheeks. Andromeda constellation had never experienced the flames of war before, and everyone's fighting had always been restricted to a very low level, so they had never experienced such sorrow before. Especially the people who had lost their loved ones, they all cried out loud. The killing intent in Tang Tian's heart had just risen, but Mingyu immediately sensed it, and her heart trembled. But more than that, she was shocked the other party knew that she was a disciple of the sword domain, but still had killing intent. That also meant that the other party was not afraid of the sword domain. Zhou Ning scoffed, what? Don't tell me you still want to. Her hoarse voice reverberated in the air, and even the clouds in the sky seemed to be shaken by it. The sound waves swept across the entire Andromeda constellation like a hurricane. You won't have the chance. Qiu Shan was dazed, his expression at a loss. Kill them all. Tang Tian, who was in the shadows, was interested. His eyes were ice cold. But a pity, he did not want to leave an enemy for himself. He whispered a few words into Angelina's ear, and Angelina's face immediately turned white. She took a deep breath, puffed out her chest, and strode forward. Chi, chi, chi. Chi. Mingyu suddenly bent her body in the air, and like a snow-white big bird, she flew into the sky. Angelina bellowed. Qiu Shan's second sentence made them feel even more at ease. Kill him. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Such a simple logic, the Lion King would definitely understand. This result surprised Tang Tian. He had thought that Qiu Shan would break out and fight to the death, but he never thought that he would surrender. What was even more interesting was the sentence he said after he was tied up. Angelina's light aura was dazzling. Everyone present roared in unison, "Fight!" Tang Tian immediately had a headache. The other party knew of his relationship with Angelina, and that was definitely a huge hidden danger. Good acting, good methods. Hearing Angelina's words, Mingyu could not help but be moved. Her heart was filled with praise. It looked like a reckless declaration of war, but it was actually not dangerous. But guesses were forever guesses. There was no concrete evidence to prove that it was Qiu Shan who did it. Although Qiu Shan had stumbled on the matter, but his family was deeply rooted in the honorable martial group. As long as there was no concrete evidence, they could slowly wrangle it out. Qiu Shan's words immediately calmed the hearts of his subordinates. Zhou Ning said sinisterly, "How you guys tie me up today, I will let you guys untie me in the same way." Angelina was one of the successors with the authority to obtain the fairy hoop, and her father Tadun controlled the plateau army, which was one of the reasons why everyone supported her. It was the 7th day. Qiu Shan had surrendered. "If you don't say it, then I will do it myself." Mingyu snorted. She moved like lightning, her snow sword unsheathed. The people of Andromeda Constellation all revealed looks of anger, but no one moved. They felt that it was a thorny problem. If Qiu Shan insisted that he was framed without any concrete evidence, they would not be able to do anything to Qiu Shan. Angelina released the dagger in her hand, took out a snow-white handkerchief, and wiped the blood stains on her hands. For some reason, she did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort after killing someone. "Seems like I have been with that guy for too long, and have become gloomy. Who exactly is he? I have already sent a letter to the martial group. They will immediately send people over." Qiu Shan's expression was calm, his gaze cold. "I am the Honorable Martial Alliance, and not someone that you can casually frame. There is no concrete evidence to prove that Asda's death and the explosion of the fairy palace was caused by Qiu Shan. Even if Qiu Shan's sneak attacked the Rose Manor, causing everyone to believe that it was 100% done by Qiu Shan. Tang Tian did not care about her. Sword Domain was a group of lunatics. The men were male lunatics. The women were female lunatics. Although they had only met once, and although her tone was polite, but the condescending tone made Tang Tian dislike it. And Tang Tian suspected that Mingyu would find trouble with him through Angelina. He had finally found a suitable female servant, and did not want her to die prematurely. Angelina did not look at him again. She turned and faced the other people who had faces of shock. "You have no evidence to prove that I did it." She laughed at herself in her heart. Chapter 369. 8th level. Tang Tian was at a loss, but after a while, he reacted, "Oh my, I remember, we swallowed the crane crystal pill." Facing the overbearing Honorable Martial Alliance, the Constellation Masters dared not say anything, and remained silent towards the Honorable Martial Alliance's request, which was their silent protest. Tang Tian said it casually, causing Angelina's heart to tighten. "Idiot." Ling Su rolled his eyes. She listened carefully, trying her best to imprint every word he said in her mind. His foresight and understanding of the current situation was something she could not compare to. His cold voice resonated in the room, causing Angelina to listen attentively. She knew that regardless of whether it was in terms of tactics or understanding of the current situation, she was far from being able to compare to him. Tang Tian's unfathomable methods had completely subdued her. To her, Qiu Shan was already unfathomable, but he was easily killed by him. As for how to hold on, think about it yourself. I am not familiar with Andromeda Constellation, but the essence of war is to use your strongest point to attack the enemy's weakest point. If you really die, then there is nothing you can do. Qi Ming was about to speak, but Qi Yintai said indifferently, "It is fine if Orion Constellation does not speak, but once it does, we cannot retreat. The war has just started, and the Martial Group is already retreating. Then there is no need to fight anymore. Not only will they fight, they will win beautifully." In this period of time, she needed to face it alone and face the Honorable Martial Alliance's counterattack. The terrifying pressure was like a mountain crushing down on her. Time slowly passed. "Liar," Ling Su scolded. He shook his head, and calmed himself down. Chi, chi, chi. The Honorable Martial Alliance did not expect Orion constellation to interfere at such a critical juncture. But if the war had just started, and they were already in such a passive situation, only the loneliness and darkness belonged to them. In the entire matter, Qiushan's figure was faintly discernible. Although there were people who suspected Angelina, but almost everyone thought that the Honorable Martial Alliance was the mastermind behind the plot. The Honorable Martial Alliance insisted that Andromeda constellation did not have any evidence, but their rebuttal was powerless. She already knew that he would be leaving for a period of time, and it would be a very long time. This caused her to panic, but his tone did not allow any doubts, so she did not speak. Qimeng might seem crude, but he was meticulous and thought, "Then what about us? Are we just going to watch?" To any constellation, people like Qiushan who used conspiracies to subvert and destroy other constellations were hated by all constellations. In time, everyone was in danger, especially the small constellations. They all stayed far away from Honorable Martial Group. The sound of something breaking through the air came out from not far away. Tang Tian subconsciously turned his head. A figure was completely enveloped by a ball of spear images. Ow! Angelina's entire body turned cold. Even he said that it would be tough. How tough would it be? Qiushan's diplomatic mission to Andromeda constellation. Asda objected to the alliance with the Honorable Martial Alliance. Qiushan left angrily. And then the explosion of the fairy palace, Asda's death, the higher-ups almost losing their lives. Qiushan's night attack on Angelina's Rose Manor. Tang Tian sighed at how time passed quickly. "It's true. I'm still at the 7th level." Tang Tian scratched his head, his face full of suspicion. "But my 7th level seems to be different from before. You're finally awake." Crane's joyful voice sounded out beside his ear. Andromeda constellation was just one of the 19 continents in the northern sky. Its power was not considered strong, and with the loss of the higher-ups, it was even weaker. But it had a long history and had a harmonious relationship with the other constellations. The generations of constellation masters were kind to others and had formed countless of good karma. Andromeda constellation's misfortune had caused the other constellations to sympathize with them. "I still haven't taken revenge for myself," Qimeng mumbled. Tang Tian opened his eyes in a daze. He felt that his body was extremely tired, and his entire body did not have any strength. It was as though he had just completed some kind of high-intensity training, and there was still some dull pain. Although Angelina had become the constellation master of Andromeda constellation, but Andromeda City was in chaos. The aristocratic families and businesses were all like a group of dragons without a leader, and to Tang Tian, it was the best opportunity. The two of them looked at Tang Tian in shock. The sky full of spear images suddenly disappeared, revealing Ling Su's figure. Ling Su's face had an unconcealable look of joy. "I'm at the 8th level." Crane's expression relaxed. "That's right. How could I forget that this crazy young man is a freak? This brat's improvement in training has always been abnormal. Wait a minute. Don't tell me he's really at the 9th level. I'm also at the 8th level." Crane's face brimmed with a confident smile. The war has just begun. Crane immediately became anxious. What's wrong? The Honorable Martial Alliance will not give up. They want to display their strength. Their people are already on the way, and you're their target. Orion Constellation and Leo Constellation's martial artists are also on the way. They will risk their lives to protect you. Andromeda Constellation will become their battlefield. You need to take charge of the situation. This news made all the constellation masters in Heaven's Road excited. With that, Tang Tian disappeared, without a trace of reluctance. He initially wanted to meet Ta Dun to see the quality of the plateau army, but there was not enough time. They will not send many people, and their strength will not be high. What you need to do is to contact all the powers that can be contacted and fight against them. This process will be very difficult, and Andromeda Constellation will be smashed to pieces, but you need to hold on. The battle between the Honorable Martial Alliance and Leo Constellation had started, causing the entire Heaven's Road to be filled with the atmosphere of war, but the change in Andromeda Constellation immediately attracted the attention of Heaven's Road. And the new constellation master of Andromeda constellation, Angelina, had publicly declared war on the Honorable Martial Alliance, causing the entire heavens road to be shaken. The Honorable Martial Alliance was enraged and directly accused Andromeda constellation of framing the Honorable Martial Alliance. And Xioshan's family even announced that they wanted to flatten Andromeda constellation. The experts of the Qi family had already traveled day and night, killing their way to Andromeda constellation. They wanted to take revenge for Xioshan. In the Rose Manor, Tang Tian and Angelina were saying the same thing. Qi and Tai looked into the distance. What's the rush? The war has just begun. I'm leaving. The crane crystal pellet was created by him. If anything were to happen, he would definitely feel guilty. Tang Tian shook his head. I'm still at the 7th level. After spending a week's time, Tang Tian secretly assisted Angelina and established the Andromeda Merchant Alliance. Almost all the powerful merchant organizations in Andromeda City were wiped out in one fell swoop. Even with his outstanding intelligence, he still felt that it was too much. The Qi family was a big family of the Honorable Martial Alliance and was much more prominent than the Yi family. The current Qi family patriarch, Qi Yuing, was one of the 13 Honorable Martial Clan elders of the Honorable Martial Alliance. The identity of the Honorable Martial Clan elder was extremely honorable, but Qi Yuing did not lose his ambition and went deep into the savage lands of Heaven's Road alone and did not return for many years. If all the aristocratic families and merchant organizations were to gather together, it would definitely be an astonishing power. This idea was impossible to achieve normally, but at such a special time, the stable power and order of the various families had already been disrupted, so it was not impossible. Everyone needed to huddle together for warmth. If not, they would not be able to survive the winter. The Honorable Martial Alliance that was trying to rope in all sorts of allies was hitting walls everywhere. Impossible, Crane exclaimed out loud. Honorable Martial Alliance, Qi family. After a while, Tang Tian reacted, his eyes open wide, and he jumped up. Wah! Ling Su, you become stronger. Orion Constellation was one of the overlords of the 10 Equatorial Palace Halls. Its power was something that even the Honorable Martial Alliance did not dare to look down on. Don't tell me you're already at the 9th level. Ling Su had a face of suspicion, but very quickly, he was shocked by his own guess. Orion Constellation is truly seeking death. Qi Meng was tall and big. His skin was dark, and his entire body was as tough as steel. His voice was like thunder, his face was filled with anger, and his appearance was terrifying. The Qi family disciples were mostly handsome men and beautiful women, but for Qi Meng to be so crude and ugly, it was extremely different. He had been bullied since young, and his temperament was irritable and perverse, and the only person he respected was Qi Yuing. Qi Meng became anxious. Second brother, it has already come to this. What are you thinking about? A dog shit Andromeda Constellation dares to declare war on us, and a dog shit Orion Constellation dares to point fingers at us. If we do not retaliate, we will lose all our face. When Big Brother returns, how do I explain to him? Qi Yantai sighed. His heart was filled with bitterness. Tang Tian was at a loss. Crane's face was filled with helplessness. Why is this guy always so slow to react? He reminded him, quickly look at how much you have. The current leader of the Qi family was Qi Yuing's younger brother, Qi Yantai. Qi Yantai was a steady person, and out of the 3 Qi brothers, his strength was the weakest, but the way he handled matters was outstanding, and all of the Qi family's matters were taken care of by him. Ling Su and Crane were still meditating, but their Qi had already calmed down. Tang Tian sat down and looked at the two of them, suddenly feeling envious. He did not have any friends and had never known what a friend was. That stupid fellow actually had such a group of good friends, which he could not understand. Of course we will just watch, Qi Yantai said leisurely. In other people's eyes, Andromeda Constellation is the victim. But in the Martial Group, our Qi family is the victim. No matter what happens to Andromeda Constellation, with Shan'er gone, no one has such a loss. Shan'er is still working for the Martial Group, since the higher-ups want to fight, That means that Sean did the right thing and will definitely compensate our Chi family. How do we manage it? Change. Crane and Ling Su were startled. But following the continuous disclosure of the inside story, Heaven's Road was in an uproar. Chi Yuntai's face turned green. Qiu Shan was the most outstanding disciple of the Qi family's younger generation and was placed with high hopes, but who knew that he would meet with misfortune in Andromeda Constellation. They did not care about what happened to Andromeda Constellation. Even 10 Andromeda constellations could not compare to Qiu Shan. He quietly returned to the season's Fields waterway. Qi Yuntai's face did not change. Counterattack. Do we need a counterattack? Qiu Shan had never even seen him before. Just as everyone was filled with worry for Andromeda Constellation, suddenly Orion Constellation of the 10 Equatorial Palace Halls announced that if the Honorable Martial Alliance attacked Andromeda Constellation, then Orion Constellation would support Andromeda Constellation and declare war against the Honorable Martial Alliance. Tang Tian immediately checked the true power in his body, and after a while, his expression became weird.